Finish what you need to do. This is not the most important thing. We're celebrating water. Well, I just
Hi
think we
there.
don't need that one.
I'm ready to go. Born ready.
Eight late. Let's go, people.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. We will now call the roll for the August 5th, 2019 board meeting. Well, first we'll call it to order, and then we'll call the roll. Mr. Gaither?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Representing Educational District 1, Ms. Leslie Grant.
Present.
Representing Educational District 3, Ms. Michelle Olympiades. Representing Educational District at Large Seat 7, Ms. Candace Wood Jackson. Representing Educational District at Large Seat 8, Ms. Cynthia Briscoe Brown.
Present.
Representing Educational District at Large Seat 9 and Board Chair, Mr. Jason Estevez.
Present.
Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gaither. I will now entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the June 3rd board meeting. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Been properly moved by Cynthia Briscoe Brown. Can I have a second? Seconded by Leslie Grant. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. I will now entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the special called meeting from July 29th. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Properly moved by Cynthia Briscoe Brown, seconded by Leslie Grant. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Can I now have a motion to approve the August 5th board meeting agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Cynthia Briscoe Brown, seconded by Candace Wood Jackson. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We will now move on to the presentations and discussion. Dr. Gerstarfen, will you please bring the work session items?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have 5 presentations today. Board goal involving professional development, 3 three that focus on various aspects. Update to the board on goals and
Sure. These goals, the board voted on and established and voted on goals back last year. We went through a couple sessions with the executive director, president of the Council of Great City Schools, Mike Casterly, leading the way and helping us through that process. Mapping and the efficacy of the professional learning opportunities for our teachers was one of those goals. This presentation is related to it. It is not necessarily exactly on point because, well, we can get into that after the discussion about efficacy and the mapping, but it's related to it, and this is, I think, the last goal that we would be touching on. I think we've worked on directly, or will be scheduled to work on directly, all of those goals except for this one. So this is part of that work. Close it out.
All right, good afternoon, board members. I'm pleased to provide you with an update today on our professional learning approach in Atlanta Public Schools. As you know, professional learning is a critical lever to support our strategic plan, especially our goals with academics and talent. Let me start by saying that we recognize the need to build the capacity of both academic and non-academic staff members in the district, not only to grow each individual employee, but also to help the district achieve its mission and vision. Having said that, I'll be transparent in saying that as with many areas over the last 5 years, we've had to put greater emphasis on our academic side of the house to ensure that we were addressing the academic deficiencies that we found in the district, so primarily our teachers who make up the bulk of our workforce. So much of my presentation today will speak to the work we've been doing on the academic side of the organization. You may recall from our October 2018 presentation last fall that we've been focused on supporting each of our schools in what we call building a coherent academic system that's comprised of 4 levers: data-driven instruction, instructional planning, coaching, and at the foundation, professional learning. The idea behind this coherent system is that effective professional learning doesn't happen in isolation as one-off conferences or random trainings, but rather as part of the daily process of equipping our teachers to be their very best for kids. This means that their professional learning is connected to the coaching that they receive from leaders within their building, how they plan for daily instruction, and the data that informs their daily instruction. We've provided our schools with a vision of excellence for each of these 4 levers, including professional learning, which I wanted to share with you. We know that teachers' growth is supported when they have at least 90 minutes for their content-specific professional learning communities that focus on instructional planning each week, that focus on instructional planning, data-driven instruction, and coaching, as well as those monthly school-wide professional learning opportunities that are responsive to the school's data and the local priorities at the school level. To support this vision, which recognizes that the most impactful professional learning happens when it's closest to the classroom, we've shifted our approach at the district level. In support of the board's direction to downsize central office and push more decision-making and resources to schools, we have significantly reduced our professional learning team and empowered our schools to lead the professional learning of their teachers. So what this means concretely for teachers is that 9 of their 10 professional learning days are determined by their school leadership team with one district-wide PL. While we offer many optional and customized professional learning opportunities for schools on those 9 days, teachers are spending their time in professional learning that directly supports their school's priorities, including their specific signature program. With this more targeted approach, district resources are now freed up to prioritize specific areas of need. I'll spend a few minutes walking you through how the district and school-based approach to professional learning intersect. Whether the district is leading the professional learning or the school is, the starting point should always be the same, our data. We use a variety of data sources to determine how to prioritize our limited time and dollars for professional learning. For example, multiple data sources pointed to the need to provide more robust support for new leaders and teachers to ensure that they have a strong start to the school year. So we invested in an enhanced new teacher orientation. We extended it from 3 to 5 days, and we provided our schools with an extensive an intensive 90-day coaching plan for new teachers that's aligned to our definition of teaching excellence. We also launched a comprehensive new leader support plan that includes a summer orientation and a year-long mentoring program for our leaders. When our data pointed to the need to strengthen our school-based leadership teams as a team and not just individually, we began to bring them together as a team for development opportunities around this academic system framework that I spoke of. And we intentionally cascaded the trainings for all the instructional leaders to ensure that we were calibrating with our principals, our assistant principals, and instructional coaches around a common definition of teaching excellence. As you can see from the examples on this slide, we've also rolled out multiple district-wide professional learning opportunities to support district-wide priorities, such as the Orton-Gillingham training to support literacy across the district, or college match and fit training to support our college and career focus. At the same time, we've offered multiple optional professional learning sessions for teachers and staff that were in direct response to the needs that bubbled up from the school, which is often how our district professional learning opportunities come about. In direct response to feedback from some of our most talented educators across the district, many of whom were leaving the district for growth opportunities, in 2017, we launched a new leadership development program that's focused on building a pipeline of leaders at all levels. This program includes teacher leaders, aspiring assistant principals, aspiring principals, as well as up-and-coming leaders within central office. We've leveraged the support of Metro RESA, Georgia State University, and Emory University to strengthen these programs. One of our most exciting professional learning investments falls within the category of teacher residency programs, which are designed to give new teachers to the field the opportunity to learn from a master teacher for an extended period of time, typically a full school year, before being fully released to independently teach in their own classroom. Over the last several years, we've had 4 different teacher residency programs within the district, and we'll have 2 primary programs moving forward, the CREATE program and the Atlanta Urban Residency program with Relay. Given the interest and potential impact of these early investments, we thought it would be helpful to do a deep dive on one of these programs, so I'll share a bit more with you about the CREATE Teacher Residency Program. Launched in 2015 with a partnership with Atlanta Neighborhood Charter School, CREATE seeks to attract prospective teachers to work in elementary and middle schools within and around the Maynard-Jackson cluster. CREATE only accepts bachelor's or master's degree students from Georgia State University's College of Education and Human Development. The teacher residency program is a 3-year program similar to the medical residency model. CREATE offers new teachers a comprehensive support system aimed at increasing teacher effectiveness and retention. So the way it works is that year 1 residents are placed in one of the CREATE schools in or near the Maynard-Jackson High School cluster for their practicum experience. A year 2 resident is a new teacher who completed all the requirements of Georgia State, and they now have an education degree and an active teacher certification. These residents work in a paid teacher team role with another CREATE resident in a CREATE school with mentoring and development opportunities. A year 3 resident is a new teacher who is the teacher of record, fully and individually responsible for a classroom while being provided with that ongoing support from CREATE. As you can see from this slide, CREATE residency program is much more than just pedagogy. There's also a significant focus on equity, compassion, collaboration, and reflection. Beyond helping to prepare teachers for many of our schools, CREATE also has supported our district's efforts to promote collaboration between charter and traditional neighborhood schools. With the shared goal of preparing effective teachers for every classroom, our schools have collaborated with common professional learning opportunities and shared talent to bolster schools in the Jackson cluster and beyond. As a result of this innovative partnership, CREATE has served 93 new teachers since its inception, impacting over 550 educators and over 9,600 students. Please join me in acknowledging the great work of the CREATE team. I think they're all sitting here on the front row. We have here with us today Elizabeth Hearn, Executive Director, Ayudele Harrison, who is the Assistant Program Director, Megan McKnight, Assistant Program Director. You guys raise your hand and wave. Dr. Follomy Prescott-Adams, the Equity Director, and Dr. Jacob Hackett, the Georgia State University Department of Education and Human Development. Thank you all for being here with us today. And while I'm on this slide, I'll point to a video that if you want to learn more about CREATE, we put a link to this in our slide, so you're welcome to go watch a video that they have provided so you can learn more about their summer resident academy training experience. So CREATE's a great example of how our work in professional learning would not be possible without partners. As you can see from the next 2 slides, we have many partners at both the local and national level who work directly with our leaders and teachers to build their capacity. This list is certainly not intended to be comprehensive. Rather, it is but a sample of those partners who support our schools. While some of these partnerships are district-wide, such as our newest partnership with Leading Educators, others are focused on specific schools or clusters, such as our partnership with Avid, which will be serving most of the schools in the Farrell cluster this year. Given the unique needs and priorities of each school, most of our partners are established at the school level, not at the district level. Some schools have brought in multiple partners, while other schools have leveraged in-house expertise and not used partners as much. You can see how these various partners are spread across the district. We attempted to capture a handful of partners who have been deeply engaged in schools across the district over the past few years. Some, such as the Rensselaerville Institute, are phasing out after 3 years of intense work, while others, such as the Rowland Center for Language and Literacy, have been longstanding partners in the district who continue to do great work in various schools. So we measure the impact of our professional learning in various ways. Of course, we attempt to correlate investments in professional learning to student outcomes, and we also measure engagement and satisfaction from the participants. Our employees are usually brutally honest with us, which we want them to be, when it comes to giving us feedback about professional learning. I've highlighted a few successes to the next 2 slides that speak to the extent to which our employees believe these investments are paying off. We typically go much deeper than these high-level questions I'm sharing with you today, of course, when we ask our participants for feedback. And in some cases, such as the Aspiring Leaders Program, a very recent example, we actually pull a focus group together to really unpack the experience with them so that we improve it for the next cohort of leaders. So looking ahead, you'll see that our plans moving forward is to focus more attention on our non-academic employees across the district to ensure that we are meeting the needs of our employees within operations, IT, HR, and finance. Mr. Chair, that concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much, David. Any questions from board members? Michelle, Cynthia, Leslie?
Thank you so much for your presentation. It was really a good high-level view of what's going on in the district. My first one is with respect to what I call like cross-pollination. So where we are utilizing one outfit in a particular area, how are we figuring out like what we liked about that program, what the best practices are, how are we sharing it across the district to maybe inform other clusters or schools that might be interested in one particular program. I'll give you that one first, and then the second one is more specific to OG.
Yeah, a lot of that collaboration happens peer-to-peer. So a lot of the time when we bring our principals together, they are sharing with each other different partnerships, different methodologies that are working in their schools. A great example, this upcoming August principal meeting, we have various principals who have been working on a presentation for their peers, and they're pulling in some of the partnership work they've been doing and leveraging that as part of their presentation to their peers. What frequently happens is the word starts spreading, and then we have more interest from other schools who jump on to whatever the partnership is that's working for those schools.
So I guess my question, thank you for that. Do we still have an Office of Professional Development that's monitoring all of these various programs? And if a principal does call up and say, I need help in a specific area, we can say, well, you might want to talk to principal so-and-so because they've used this institute or what have you. Is that all happening as well?
The Office of Professional Learning certainly can play that role. It happens probably most frequently through our associate superintendents who are in the schools on the ground, and then the instructional leadership coordinator, who is one of the employees within the professional learning that's paired up with an associate sup. They're the ones in schools on the ground, and typically are sort of from the bottom up how that information would come to us so that we can be responsive to those needs.
Very good, thank you. So my second question is on the Orton Gillingham, which was back on slide 14.
Yes, ma'am.
Could you walk me through what exactly we're training? Is it a 3-day training? Is it a week training? Is it multiple weeks? Do we have a pathway for anyone to become a fellow?
Yeah, so the Orton Gillingham training has been a 3-year grant, thanks to partnerships from Chick-fil-A Foundation, College Football Playoff Foundation, Atlanta Football Host Committee, and Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. They've given $2 million over a 3-year program. So in the first year in 2017, we trained 547 kindergarten and first grade teachers. And I believe that is a week-long training. In 2018, we trained 399 new kindergarten and first grade teachers, as well as second and third grade teachers across the district. So we expanded the grades in the second year. This third year, we did a K-5 approach. So we had 320 kindergarten through fifth grade teachers were trained. So we have trained all in 1,268 teachers across those 3 levels. In addition to that, we now have an opportunity this year with the Skank School. So they have stepped up and offered training for advanced training opportunities that reflect the district-wide representation from all clusters. That training is offered by them for educators who want to go further in their education and impact on readers who struggle. So they want to get sort of that, it's the classroom educator certification that you described. And so they will get that through the Skink School Partnership, and we right now have 38 teachers from 21 schools participating.
And how are we funding that, or are the teachers paying for this?
I believe that is paid for at the school level.
The
So if
school
a
level?
teacher wants to pay for it, the school would have to identify those resources.
Okay, just bear with me because you know I'm a big fan of OGs. I'm glad to hear about that. We're getting into the SKANK program because that's very comprehensive. Wilson Foundations, that is basically OG, but it just has a framework around it. So how is that piece coming in to support, again, the K-5 teachers? Because basically it's you know, it's the framework for the methodology, and the OG is the methodology. So just want to make sure we're being thoughtful and not duplicative in how we're training our staff.
You are correct that Wilson's Foundations, it has Orton Gillingham as a foundational philosophy embedded within the program. That is our Tier 1 program for all kids in the district, teaching them phonics. And so we've trained over the last 4 years almost 1,000 of our teachers in Wilson Foundations. And we will continue that training. That's funded through Title I dollars. That's just for the K-3 Wilson Foundations, and then we also have a 4-5 that's called Wilson's Just Words that's also to help support older kids who are still struggling with decoding, and we've trained 477 teachers over the last 4 years in that. That training will continue. That is our Tier 1 training for the program that we teach basic foundation, phonemic awareness and the basic skills. The Orton Gillingham training is really for Tier 2 instruction. Those are for the kids who are still struggling and for whom the basic foundational Tier 1 support is not, or the Tier 1 education isn't meeting their needs. So this is for additional pull-out support when you really see a kid struggling. So the teachers who go to the OG training are getting the basic understanding of Orton Gillingham, but getting that deeper understanding of how they really support that kid who's really struggling when the Tier 1 instruction isn't cutting it for them.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cynthia?
I think she got all my questions.
Okay. Very comprehensive questioning from Michelle. Leslie?
Thank you. So I know, as you know, I had requested that we get a bigger, broader report from CREATE specifically, because I think what they're doing is broad and different than anything else is happening in APS right now. And I may be wrong, but the point was for this request last spring was so that we could get an understanding about what are the pieces that we're doing, where and why, how are we assessing the needs of the students and what we need to get them, each student to grow, and how are we making decisions and then funding those decisions to improve student achievement district-wide. And so I do appreciate this. It is a little bit confusing, and Jason mentioned maybe talking a little bit more about efficacy and mapping. I'm not sure where, but aside from that, I would still like to get, if we could, and they're here, and I hope you wouldn't mind, if we were able to get a little more comprehensive understanding of specifically what the CREATE program is, because again, it is something that was built internally, and not everyone in the district is aware of what's happening with it. And if you wouldn't mind them coming up and giving a little bit more.
Elizabeth?
Hey, thank you.
No, to turn that mic on.
Is that working? Okay. So, Leslie, tell me how long you would like me to speak, because, of course, I can speak forever on this topic.
Can you do 2 minutes? There you go.
Sure. CREATE really does 3 things. We develop new teachers, we train teacher leaders, and we address systemic teacher induction problems. And the way we do this is integrated across all 3 of the levels. Certainly, as David mentioned, we've got this residency program. The development of the teacher leaders came along because we realized we can't develop new teachers without working closely with all of the educators who surround them once they go into the schools. And if our focus in developing new teachers is on critical consciousness, identity, race, equity issues, and on the ability to be compassionate with self and others. We really needed to be doing that work in the whole school communities where these new teachers were landing. And then ultimately, once we began doing that and we realized how effective it was and how inspiring and the kind of very high teacher retention that we were seeing as a result of this work, we realized we actually really needed to begin to address these issues on a systemic level by bringing together the university and members of the district and the schools themselves to all work in conjunction to coordinate the programming so that folks that begin in one place don't land in another place without everybody talking to each other. We don't want to just put a Band-Aid on this issue. We want to really think carefully and slowly about it, get in underneath it and address the foundational problems at all of the levels. And so we're going after all three levels at the same time.
And can you tell me a little bit, I mean, is there a plan to try and, spread a little further than the current footprint, which looks to include mostly Jackson cluster, but not all, and then some of the purpose-built schools? What are the district's desires and what are your abilities to maybe expand that?
Yeah, so, money and time and interest need to be balanced very carefully. It's hard to kind of begin with money if you don't have the interest at the same time and vice versa. So we're really trying to coordinate the two. What I would say is we absolutely have the ability to expand and we believe it would be valuable to partner more fully between CREATE and the district so that there is stability in programming. Right now we are entirely dependent on grants, and that's soft money. And in order for us to really build our capacity and maximize it and maximize the tremendous impacts we're realizing, we need to have sort of longer term contracts in place and more dependable financing. But we have interest from a number of schools beyond those that we're serving to expand into those schools. Yeah.
David, can you speak to the district? Because I think, or Dr. Starfin.
All of these go to the other comprehensive list. So there's this model in particular is one of the more that it's one of the more expensive models. So it does take more than the average kind of professional learning design. For us, it's just, again, once the board kind of sorts through as far as the design is concerned, we know, but is also one of the most effective. So it's a little bit of a double-edged sword. We're doing
Yeah, I would echo that. I mean, I think I've heard nothing but positive things about the great work they've done in our schools, and so it's, I don't think there's a lack of interest in continuing to partner and expand if possible. The constraint is money. I mean, if you look at their, they have been blessed with a lot of grants to fund the work so far, but on a per resident basis, we're talking about like a $21,000 per resident cost. Which probably as you scale, it may not be as expensive as you add residents, but that's the current cost per resident. And we have a similar model as Dr. Chrisarfin talked about, the Atlanta Urban Teacher Residency Program with Relay, which is not exclusively for you don't have to come from a particular university to be a part of that program, but it's also very costly. In that case, the schools have to pick up the tab for the salary, and our limitation there has been like the extent to which a school is willing to invest those dollars, because we push, as you all know, we push dollars out to schools and we hold fewer and fewer dollars here, and so the schools have to make a decision about whether they're going to invest in that. So this year, we have 13 schools who picked up a resident in the Atlanta Urban Teacher Residency Program, and they're paying for those costs. We pick up just the tuition cost for them. So if we were to do a similar model with Create and ask the schools, like, if you're going to invest in this, you have to be willing to put some skin in the game, I think that would be sort of where the rubber meets the road. Right now, it doesn't cost the school anything, so, you know, I mean, you may correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think it costs them much, if anything.
There's half of the salary of the second year residents. It's just that 1 year is impacted a bit. Yeah.
So that's where I think the question would come up, is who's going to pay for it and how will we get the money?
And then back to, I guess, the question of efficacy, like where is the back end analysis of, you know, this program versus this program, what we're able to offer, you know, agnostic of funds, because you really do need to understand, like, is it worth the investment? I guess, how does that happen? Is Relay a intensive program like this? What are their numbers for, how do they maintain their teachers? What is the retention rate? And then, I don't know if you want to add a bit about demographics of the teachers that you're bringing in and keeping, so.
So Create has, at the 3-year mark, 3 years of certified teaching, we have 91% overall teacher retention. And when we talk about teachers who identify as Black, we have 46 of 48 are still in teaching. That is exceptionally high retention that across the nation is being recognized as an outstanding result. And what we know is that it costs an urban district approximately $18,000 to replace a teacher that leaves or even changes schools. And so there is money that is being used for human resources that could be turned around and used proactively to address this problem on the front end, not only to just keep people from quitting, but to actually bring about all the other effects that we see, which is high efficacy, excellent teaching, and then the retention so that school culture can take hold. Principals feel more satisfied in their jobs. They don't want to leave as much. Those kinds of things are all money-saving initiatives, as well as, of course, serving our students better so that they don't have the extended other needs that we now sometimes scramble in a kind of Band-Aid fashion to address.
Mm-hmm. I'll just add, I think it would be, I think it'd be dangerous to think of this as an either-or proposition. I think if you're thinking of Relay specifically and Create, they are two completely different programs serving different purposes. So Create really is a partnership with Georgia State University for students who are only at Georgia State University. Their commitment is to teach in Georgia after the program. So many of the residents don't end up returning to Atlanta Public Schools. And you know, you guys would have the data on that. But that's their focus is preparing teachers for the state of Georgia with, you know, obviously the aspiration that they teach and stay in APS. The Relay model is different in that I think the target audience would be someone like a paraprofessional who's been in the school, but they're going back to get their degree, their master's degree. So they go through a master's program with Relay, but the difference is they do have to stay in APS for 5 years. They make a 5-year commitment to the program. We have so far, I mean, it's early in the Relay partnership to even have impact data because they only did their first year of residence in APS. I've seen great data on the impact of their work. So, but my point is that I think they're serving two different audiences, and we need more pipelines to get into teaching in APS, not fewer.
Yeah, I understand. Just wanted to make sure that there's how does the district manage the, you know, like, we're going to push out this, we're going to push out this, we'd like to build here, we need to build here. So just that process.
And on that point, Leslie, in terms of efficacy, it's something that Dr. Kostarfin has said in the past is building out a team to actually be able to do that. Well, Dr. Kostarfin, or David, do you want to speak to that?
Yes, so we've talked about this as part of the Excellent Schools model. So the board has set aside in the budget this year, you know, $700,000 for us to figure out how to build the accountability structure and what that might be. The data information group has worked hard on, you know, a small proposal, but a way for us to get started. But it's going to be led by whenever we end up with an action on in December of 2019 when we close out the strategic plan. And you can have an evaluation group, but we would have to have the right people who are able to do it consistently, and do it with the capacity the board is willing to pay for. And that takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of expertise, but y'all have already made a small dent in that. And we'd be prepared to, start launching, budget to get started. And then from there, we could build as much as we needed to do to be able to evaluation of programs.
But we haven't hired anyone for that.
No, sir, we have not used any of the money or hired for it until we have that approved direction from the board.
Which will continue through the strategic planning process, where as a board, we decide how we want to, what we're measuring, what we're talking about in terms of strategic plan 5 years from now, and whether or not you want to be evaluating that. And I think overall, as a board, many of you have asked questions that over the years have last couple of years in particular, have prompted that response. And I think now we have an opportunity to actually build out not only the data side of it, which I think we've built out significantly, and Michael Lamont, kudos. Bill, kudos. It's a great function. But then there's that other side of the evaluation and efficacy piece.
And, okay, just to be clear, though, that will only come when a particular new department or positions are created in APS to do that evaluation and the funding to back it.
Correct. That is what the direction we received from the board. We did not set aside any other money outside of that.
Yeah, other than that, we are receiving, obviously have efficacy data from the organizations themselves. So we have organizational data, but I think what we've heard, or what I've heard from board members, is that they want more of the more independent, more APS data versus just hearing it from the organizations themselves.
Thank you all for your time. Really appreciate the information.
Candace?
Thank you, David. I have a question specifically about people who may be interested in teaching for Atlanta Public Schools, but didn't attend a university partner institution, or who aren't considering like another program like TFA, and particularly APS graduates. Are there any programs that we have done or are considering to do to encourage and help transition or help facilitate such a pipeline from our graduates to our classrooms as teachers?
Yes, there are alternative certification programs that our HR department works with multiple partners and helps our teachers to get, if they are not certified, but they have the degree in the content area, for example, we can put them on an alternative certification pathway and work with a partner like Metro Risa is one that we work closely with to get teachers into an alternative pathway program.
All right, so thank you, David, for that. Thank you to the CREATE team. Again, thanks for being here. Give you a round of applause for your work. And next up,
Angela King-Smith, Chief Engagement Officer, will provide an update on the development of our 5-year strategic plan for 2020 through 2025.
Thank you, Dr. Karstafen and Board Chair Estevez. The launch of the 2020-2025 strategic plan provides an opportunity for our collective community to come together and outline our goals and priorities for our school district. Strategy is about deciding what the system and the individuals in them must do on behalf of students and their learning, and then putting those actions into place. It provides an opportunity based off of data, as well as our vision for our district for helping students to learn. The strategic plan outlines our set of actions, as well as a clear picture of how the people, activities, and resources of an organization can work effectively together to accomplish our collective vision and purpose. The mission, vision, guiding principles, and core values will remain from the previous 2015-2020 strategic plan. The strategic planning process will include developing high-level goals, objectives, initiatives, as well as measures for the strategic plan. These items will all the items that you see on the screen will serve as an important foundation for our new 2020-2025 strategic plan. At the March 4th, 2019 Atlanta Board of Education meeting, the board determined that the superintendent shall partner with the board during the strategic planning process to determine the appropriate way to integrate the vision of excellence, portrait of a graduate, into the next APS strategic plan. In addition, the board also approved recently the policy BBB to ensure that equity is included in everything we do. We will use each of these items, the vision, the portrait of a graduate, as well as the equity policy, to serve as critical documents to guide, support, and inform the development for our new strategic plan. Outlined on this slide is all of the major steps as well as the phases and the timing over the next 5 to 6 months for the development of the new plan. The process outlines both the steps as well as descriptions for creating the new plan. We will begin with an assessment phase that we're currently in right now to take a look at our current state. We'll take stock of our strengths as well as opportunities for improvement. Also highlighted here are our board work sessions, which I'll be coming before you every month over the next 5 to 6 months to give you highlights as to the development of the plan, to get any questions that you may have. And then also you will see at the bottom of the plan some of our community cluster conversations, which I'll talk about in a minute. Our stakeholder engagement, we plan to engage a variety of stakeholders throughout this process to inform and develop the new 2020-25 strategic plan, and we'll use a variety of mediums to be able to do that. Stakeholder touch points, we will be doing one, we will be working in the community in community conversations, as well as employee meetings to gather feedback. We will also utilize dedicated website to share information as well as to collect information. And then finally, we will also hold a variety of conversations through stakeholder surveys as a part of our engagement plan. Outlined here, we will also plan to connect with the existing advisory groups across the district. We want to utilize those bodies that are already in place to help to inform the plan. And then we will connect on throughout our community with various meetings. And so highlighted on the next slide, you'll see engagement sessions. These are our first round of sessions where we'll be combining the state of the cluster meetings that we've historically held. This year, we're going to combine the state of the cluster meetings with strategic planning sessions to design and outline the strategic plan. And the focus of those state of the cluster meetings will be to provide high-level cluster information and data. The associate superintendent for each of the respective clusters will facilitate the cluster portion of the evening, and then we will lead the teams throughout discussions regarding the strategic plan. All schools geographically located in the cluster should plan to participate in these important meetings regardless of their school type. So whether stakeholders, their kids attend a partner or charter or traditional school, we want you there. So it's done by the geographic location, and the dates are highlighted on the screen. Our first meeting will be held in the Thero cluster August the 20th, and then you see we go for a full month of busy meetings where we'll be meeting in each of the stakeholder clusters ending September the 24th at our South Atlanta meeting at Long Middle School. And so on this screen, you'll see the actual agenda for those cluster meetings that we'll be combining both the state of the cluster, and as well as having discussions around the strategic plan. This is the agenda for this round of meetings. Given this change, we will not have schools provide individual school updates during the state of the cluster. The state of the cluster will provide general information for the entire cluster as a whole, and it's roughly about half of the meeting. And then the other half of the meeting will be dedicated to strategic planning questions and discussion, and it will approximately be about 120 minutes in length. And then highlighted on this slide is a website to share the information with the general public regarding the strategic planning process. This will serve as your central hub for information for the strategic plan. All presentations will be posted here at this site. Even this additional presentation is posted there now. We will also post additional analysis that will be posted on this site as well. During the planning phase, we will be doing an assessment of the district's strengths and opportunities through our current state analysis. We will be conducting surveys and gathering information from stakeholders. To that end, beginning today, there is a survey out on this website for stakeholders to provide information regarding what is strong in the district, as well as opportunities for change. You can access the strategy website by using this link that's highlighted on the slide. And we will also be collecting the same information this Saturday at our Back to School Bash. This is the first of many surveys that we'll be doing. As we further determine and collect the information that we need, you'll see additional surveys or opportunities for stakeholders to provide and inform the development of the plan. And this concludes my presentation. I'll take any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much, Angela. Appreciate that. Questions? Leslie? Dean?
Thanks, a little sympathy for your months ahead. I know y'all are going to be running ragged. We wish you happy breakfast.
Thank you.
Can you just let me know a little bit about what the assessment phase looks like, and is there going to be like a here's where we are and here's why we're there, the root cause? I'm glad to see that word in there. Just what this will look like.
Yes, so we'll be providing information out on terms of just where the clusters are, in terms of where they are related to their programming in the particular clusters, in terms to regarding STEM or IB or college and career prep. We'll also be providing just general information about how the students are performing. We also are asking now, like, where are the current strengths? Where do you believe the current strengths are in your particular cluster? And then trying to understand, like, where people feel like there are opportunities for additional support. So we'll be gathering that as our initial beginning starting point, and we'll be having those kinds of conversations or collecting that kind of data to be able to provide a summary, if you will, regarding kind of our current state.
And just clarifying question on that. When it's presented, will the data be, cluster level or school level within the cluster, or actually will it disaggregate, by?
So at the state
Race,
of the cluster,
gender.
we'll be providing that so that it will be focused around that particular cluster. Yes.
Okay, if there's any way to drill down a little more.
So what we're encouraging is that schools many schools are also planning to do some sort of state of the school, whether it's a PTA meeting, like where if you want to get into the details at the school level, those meetings will be happening post some of these state of the cluster meetings, because we are tight on time.
Okay, thanks.
Michelle?
Thank you, Jason. Just to piggyback, thank you for the presentation. Just to piggyback on what Leslie was talking about. So you'll get this, I guess this all goes back to what exactly we're doing from the March 4th vote and the confusion that I hear in the community from both sides of the Excellent Schools framework. But I want to understand for sure that when we're assessing, we are going to be looking at assessing our schools, understanding what their strengths are, what their needs are, and making sure that we're communicating with our communities about what those needs are, and then how we are going to help address that moving forward in the next 5 years. I'm trying to get some clarity around all of this because I've had an interesting summer listening to the community on this.
So we are planning to provide information at the cluster level at these state of the cluster meetings. They will be able to see their particular school and also be able to provide feedback in terms of their experience or opportunities for strengths.
And I understand that, but coming back to the board with respect to the strategic planning aspect of it, when we start this work, are we going to be able to understand not just where our clusters are, but where our schools are, so that we understand what schools' needs are and what their strengths are, so that we can begin to address that?
Yes. We're going to take the vision of excellence that was approved from the March 4th meeting utilize that as a part of the strategic planning process. And so right now we are working on the deliverables that will come out of the strategic plan. And one of the strategic planning deliverables will be, one, what are the goals and objectives at the district level, as well as how to measure those things that we've outlined, and then incorporating the vision of excellence as a part of kind of that frame. And so right now we're trying to make sure that there are linkages there.
But just to be clear, though, we are not assessing individual schools.
That is correct.
Because we don't have indicators for that. Is that what you're? So I think that in terms of strengths, weaknesses, root cause analyses, the administration will be able to tell us, based on the information that they have, portrait of graduate, definition of excellence, where schools need assistance. I would think the administration would be able to do that, but it's not like the administration is going to be able to go much deeper and assess specific things that the board has not indicated we are interested in. Because part of the excellent schools thing was to break this up into steps. So all we passed back in, seems like a year ago,
March 4th.
The only thing we passed was the portrait of graduate, definition of excellence. We have not gone into indicators. We have not gone into accountability. We haven't gone into monitoring or anything like that. So that is work that is yet to be done. That is work that, as a board, we need to think about and talk about when it comes to the strategic planning process. So I think I need some clarity on what you're asking for on specific individual schools. Like what do you envision so that it's clear? Because I think in terms of assessing individual schools, right now what the administration has to assess on is a portrait of graduate and definition of excellence. That is not very, but it's kind of vague. It's not specific.
And I appreciate you allowing us to have this conversation to get some clarity on this. For me, we know that there's already assessment tools out there, like a community school model is a great one to start off with, that you can use to walk into a school and try to figure out what's going on and what resources you're lacking, what resources you need to bring to the table. I also think that we have plenty of data from GOSA and the Department of Ed that can help our schools understand where there's real opportunity to start to immediately address some of the concerns that I think many people have with a lot of our schools. I understand that we want to do something that's Atlanta, kind of APS our own thing, but in the interim, I don't think we need to negate the fact that there's plenty of data out there already, and there's tools out there already that can help make this work richer and more engaging and a lot better than us just trying to create something on our own. I think there's tools out there that we need to bring into this process and not feel like it is so we have to create everything.
So I think what I hear you requesting, because at this point we haven't created anything, and what I hear you asking is the achievement data, the data that we receive or that we get from the state. You want that compiled for each school?
It already is. We already have the grades for each school. I'm just saying, let's start using that information as a starting point to how we can help our communities, because it's going to take us a while to figure out what it is that we want, but we can start helping our communities now.
Okay.
I don't want to, I just feel like, I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel. There's a wheel already there. We just want a nicer rim on it. But there's a wheel already there that we can be using, and I think we need to take advantage of the information that we currently have to start to feed it into the work that we're going to be doing for the next 5 years.
Dr. Sarpin, before that, be curious about what other board members think about that, because I've heard many times over the course of various presentations, because you're right, we do have that information, and I think that it is oftentimes presented school by school, cluster by cluster, and it's siloed. So we talk about milestones, we talk about CCRPI, we talk about, not that I heard something over. We talk about, various measurements. We talk about that all the time. And what I'm hearing is, well, let's put all that together and look at how each school would do it. Like, but that is going into the direction that I thought I heard folks did not want to go into, in terms of having some kind of status report of individual schools. I mean, that was what was reported in the AJC as a report card, and there were people on the board who were shying away from that. That's first point. Second point is, I've also heard from board members, and again, I'm inviting the board to speak up on this. I've also heard from board members that some of the indicators that we have, they'd like to go beyond that. So when it comes to milestones, when it comes to student achievement, when it comes to culture, they want to go beyond retention. They want to go beyond teacher retention. They want to go beyond milestone test scores. They want to see how students feel in schools. They want to go beyond the Gallup score. They want to see how they want to dig deeper. And with all of that wanting for more by board members, I think it begs the question, do we have the information that the board actually wants? The answer may be yes, and it just needs to be packaged into a new room. But what I've heard, and maybe I have this wrong, but I've heard that we do not have it, we do not have all the information we want, and that we do want to have more indicators, but at the same time, we don't want to compile them in a way that would be like it is a report card or an assessment of each school. So I want to make sure that we're balancing those two, because if we start, I can hear it now, if they give us a binder with each school individually, with all of the achievement data, all of the retention rates, all of the attendance rates, you name it, whatever it is, people will say, we have created report cards for our schools. That's what they're going to come back with. So I want to be clear.
No, I'm glad you're walking me through it. But I mean, we already got the report cards. I mean, the GOSA report cards are public information. Again, my whole point is, I think that there's work that we can be doing from now to do more of a needs analysis, an assessment analysis, and not so much a report card, to start helping our schools and our clusters.
Erica and then Isha.
Well, I was going to say, just looking at what we started with and where we're going, I always like the recommendation of a needs assessment. I think it gives us a outline on what each school needs, and from that information, then I feel like you can utilize it to develop a more comprehensive strategic plan based off the needs assessment. I don't agree with ranking schools per se, because I think it can be discouraging, especially from some districts, speaking from what I've seen. I think it needs to be done differently, but I think we can tailor this strategic plan around a needs assessment to give it more of a comprehensive direction of where we're going with the overall school district.
I think to piggyback off of Erica's point, I think she just pretty much laid out what you've displayed on slide 4. in regards to assessment and assessing and the development. So for me, it feels like that we're on the right track. I do want to just keep the board members in mind. I don't know where this conversation keeps coming up about ranking schools. For me, that's something that I was, through all the retreats, all the conversations that we've had, when that was suggested based on where we asked the facilitator, our consultant, and even the district to look at what other districts were doing in regards to building an excellent school framework. I remember that being an example. So the report card that Michelle keeps talking about, I think we also landed on the fact that, to your point, we have all this data here. So to your point, it's not like we're reinventing the wheel. What it feels like is just like this circular motion of us just keep going around and just, I think what we need to do is just land on the fact that we are in a strategic plan process. And, as I always reiterate, is remove the political context and political pressures of this and stay on the time, think about the timeline, which both of you guys just really conveyed differently, but it's the same thing in regards to us getting a solid strategic plan that's going to benefit children. The community school model is not an assessment tool, it's actually a model based on the assessment of what we need to put in place to take schools or a community of schools or cluster of schools to another level, which is something that I am open to looking into, and we actually have looked into it for the South Atlanta cluster a few years ago, so I can share that with you guys. So for me, Jason, you did ask for feedback. I think for me, I'm just kind of a little confused and a little foggy on where board members are perceiving this ranking system and rating system, where I think we're just, but we're also laying out there as an assessment, development, and plan. And I think it's just going to behoove us to make sure that those things do not, that those things are not created if we feel like it's going to create a stronger rub amongst us and amongst the community. So I just want to say that. Oh, sorry, you guys. So I said all of that. Well, I can't. Oh, I was just kidding. All I just wanted to say is just to stress out to, I know, yeah. I agree with both of what my colleagues stated in regards to the assessment and developing the plan. I definitely don't want to walk away nor send the impression to the community that we're considering a ranking system. I definitely think our need to assess is going to open a deeper conversation on what models that we do want to implement for various clusters. And I'm just encouraging my board, my colleagues to stay on track as we think about a strategic plan that's going to be the best for our children for the next 5 years, as we also had a solid strategic plan to make it to this point. So thanks.
Leslie?
So I think I would be fully in agreement if we were to complete a comprehensive assessment of the district's strengths, opportunities, current state, root cause analysis to include data analysis, and reviewing existing initiatives, processes, and supports with an understanding that we have the capability currently to get that at basically a student level.
We don't have the capability to take it all the way.
There are pieces that we can get from student level.
So what we have,
I know that we can't share that publicly with any, trailing information or whatnot, but I think the point to not having our schools ranked is that we understand there's different dynamics within a school, that there are different populations in a school that are, some are, higher populations are moving great, the middle part's not, the lower quartile is, that there's an understanding that we understand how you're looking at it, how you were doing that root cause analysis, that's important.
So we don't have any additional assessments or data tools than what we have existing in place.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to use the existing tools such as the data digs and the websites that are available through Michael Lamont's shop and Bill Creed. That's what we're going to use. We're going to use that level of information that's currently available. We're not going beyond that with this current phase, with this initial phase.
But you believe that you can develop some understanding of root cause analysis through what you currently have?
We're going to, I don't know how much of root cause analysis we'll be able to do. We're going to try and collect all the information we have and try and identify themes or patterns based off of the information that's available.
Okay. Thanks.
Anything else from board members? Dr. Kastarfin, I think you wanted to comment on this too. Okay. So I think it's important for this process that board members participate, be active and clear on all this stuff, because I want to make sure that we're all on the same page when we have this discussion, because our clarity, it helps inform the administration on what they need to give us. So I just want to make sure before we depart, Angela, I'm sorry, you're not done yet.
It's okay.
Before we depart, you and Leslie had an exchange. I think that there's agreement there, but I still want to get closure on Michelle. So, what exactly are you looking for? No pressure. If you don't need that, if you don't have it now, just make sure that we get it to Angela. One, to make sure we can do it, but two, to make sure that we have, as a board, the information that we need, that we can get to start this process. So no pressure to answer that now, but if there's an example of kind of what you see, that would be helpful. But it sounds like it's related to what Leslie read out. Although that was more district, you're looking, Michelle, for it to be schools.
Yes.
You're looking for more schools. So we can talk through that.
It would be helpful, one, to get that information now. You see, like, we're getting ready for community meetings in a couple weeks, and we want to make sure that we're asking the right questions and having the right conversations in those meetings. The other thing that we are planning to do, because schools they have their own process, but we're planning to also kind of link their school improvement discussions that they have with some of ours to identify trends. To identify trends across the board, both at the cluster level and the district level. So that's some additional things that we will be doing right now. There's some things that we'll be doing as a district team, but the schools and academics team are doing some things. We're going to bring those things together, but they do also have that as a part of their conversations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And hold on, you're not done yet.
Okay.
Nancy.
And I apologize for being late, but I did go through this with the superintendent on our one-on-ones, and I want to say thank you, because for so many years we've gotten to this point. We're going so much farther, and your work is really appreciated. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
Thank you. And I also want to thank my team, the strategy and development team, who all of them, I have retained them all, and they were a part of the 2015-2020 development of the plan. They helped us to create the plan, they've helped us to implement the plan, they've helped us to monitor the plan, and I got the same team who are going to do a bang-up job on this 2020-2025 plan.
I think
So
that deserves
awesome.
a round of applause.
I think so too.
Can they stand up? Where are they at? Stand up. Stand up.
Carolyn, Barnett, Travis,
There we go.
Marvell, Melvin, Reed, and Ashley Lane.
Thank you so much.
Last month, speaking, Lamont has arrived. We've been talking about you and throwing your name around a ton, but it's great to have you up here to actually talk about a lot of your work. In this case, the Georgia Department of Education released the 2019 Georgia Milestones results. We have some good news, and we still have a lot of work ahead of us to see all of our students have choice-filled lives. And so Mr. Lamont is going to walk us through the work of the Data and Information Group. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Dr. Kastarfin. Good afternoon, board members. I'm here today to present to you the 2019 milestones results that were just released by the Georgia Department of Education. So during my presentation, I'm going to summarize the results from last week. Then I'm going to walk through the end of grade results, which are for elementary and middle school students. Then I'll talk about the end of course results. And then finally, I'll close with next steps from the administration. I'm going to start with the administration summary. So in summary, APS achieved its highest proficiency rates ever on the Georgia Milestones Assessment. We achieved year-over-year gains in the percentage of students scoring proficient and above in 21 of the 24, or 88% of the end-of-grade and end-of-course tests. This is up from in 2018, we had 75% of those subjects, and in both 2017 and 2016, only 52%. So you can see we made increases each of the past 2 years. 80% of our schools achieved increases in the percentage of students scoring proficient above in the end-of-grade assessments, and 76% of our schools showed improvements in the percent of students scoring proficient above in the end-of-course tests. Also of note is all 17 of our schools that received targeted partnership support as part of the initial cohort of APS turnaround strategy improved their milestones proficiency rates since 2016. I'll start with just a very brief refresher of the end-of-grade milestones assessments. So as you might be aware, Georgia Department of Education awards one of 4 achievement level performances to our students. Our students can be a distinguished learner, a proficient learner, a developing learner, or a beginning learner on these tests. For the purpose of the rest of my presentation, when I refer to percent proficient above, I'm referring to those students that are both proficient learners as well as distinguished learners. Beginning in 2017, end-of-grade assessments were given in 3 through 8 for ELA and math, but only in 5th and 8th grade for science and social studies. This is different than in previous years, and this is in alignment with the state law, which changed eliminating those science and social studies tests in grades other than 5 and 8. So moving into our end-of-grade assessments, you can see here, this is when we aggregate across all of our grades. You can see by subject, we have seen increases in all of our milestones, and these were actually the highest proficiency rates in all 4 core subjects that we've ever achieved. So you can see here our biggest year-over-year increases were in science at 3.9 percentage points, as well as ELA, 3.3 percentage points. Finally, when we do look at each individual grade level for the grades and subjects that they were tested, you can see in 13 of the 16 end-of-grade tests, we saw year-over-year improvements in the percent of students scoring proficient and above. We saw the biggest increases in 6th grade ELA, or 6.6 percentage points. Our 3rd grade math was up 6.5 percentage points, and finally 8th grade ELA was up 5.5 percentage points. Only 5th grade social studies and 6th and 8th grade math saw decreases in the 2019 proficiency rates compared to the previous year. So comparing APS to the state of Georgia, we saw both APS and the state of Georgia made improvement in all 4 EOG subjects between 2018 and 2019. So while gaps still exist, APS did improve slightly in 2 of the 4. So you can see, compared to 2018, the gaps in performance between APS and the state increased slightly between ELA and math, meaning the gap between APS and the state got bigger in those 2 by 1/10 of a percentage point. And then APS actually saw a decrease in science and social studies by 0.7 and 0.6 percentage points respectively. The largest gap in general terms was in mathematics, 8.7 percentage points below the state, and the smallest was in science at only 4.6 percentage points, again, of proficient learners or above with the state. Next, I'll talk about the end-of-course tests. These are 8 specific tests that are aligned to high school-specific courses that our students take. These tests are given at the end of the courses when students complete them. They receive the same 4 achievement level descriptors, so distinguished learner, proficient learner, developing learner, beginning level learner. 7 of the 8 tests, so all of the tests except physical science, are actually aligned to a course that's required for graduation. Some of our students do take these tests as part of middle school curriculum, either during an advanced curriculum, so you might see 8th graders take an algebra test as part of this, or we do have physical science that is taken at the middle school level now as well. So you can see here, these are all 8 end-of-course tests. You can see, again, in all 8 of our end-of-course tests, we showed year-over-year gains. Our highest proficiency rates were in 9th grade literature in 43.5 percentage points. And again, I do want to note that physical science is not a graduation requirement, and so we do see differences in the number of kids that take those based on the school's curriculum and how they map kids. So they might have a physics focus, and so less kids take that test. Next, you can see each of the individual achievement levels, so beginning level learner, developing, proficient, distinguished, and then the change year over year. So again, we saw gains on our end-of-course tests in all 8 end-of-course tests. The largest increases were in physical science at 9.7 percentage points. Algebra 1 grew 8.6 percentage points, and 9th grade literature grew 7.9 percentage points. Finally, we'll look and compare Atlanta Public Schools to the state of Georgia. And again, APS and the state of Georgia both saw gains on all 8 of the end-of-course tests. You can see that APS narrowed the gap in 6 of the 8 end-of-course subjects, and 2 of the 8 we got slightly behind the state. But again, APS did grow in our proficiency rates in all 8. So you can see here our largest gaps were physical science at 20.9 percentage points below the state. Geometry was 15.6 percentage points below the state, and 9th grade literature was 15.4 points behind the state. We wanted to provide you a list of some of the next steps that were provided by our school and academic team. So each of our schools this summer completed a data review that was aligned to their strategic improvement plan. These data included everything from prior year CCRPI, which are aligned to the school grades on GOSA, as well as milestones results from this summer. So school leadership teams that the principal defined went through this process to then develop their school improvement plan. Each school also developed the academic systems implementation plan for this upcoming school year that are aligned to the 4 levers of the academic system. The third, the schools and academics team continue their focus on building the capacity of the school leadership teams through district-wide capacity building sessions and expanding the content-specific support. The fourth was the comprehensive pre-K to 12 literacy plan with a pre-K to 3 reading readiness indicators and a new formative assessment system in Fontes and Pinnell and a new vetted curricular resources. Finally, the targeted professional learning that David touched about, that team as well this morning, or earlier this afternoon, they built the teacher's content knowledge and expand the repertoire of the instructional practices that were provided. That was a lot quickly, but at this point, I'd be happy to entertain any questions from the board.
Thank you so much, Michael. I appreciate that. Do you want to, well, let's do this first. Questions from the board? Who said yes? Okay. Ishay? Anyone else? Anyone else? No? Okay. While Ishay's looking, are the school improvement plans that each school completed, are those public? Like if I'm a parent, could I see that?
Yes. Yes. Getting the nod from Deputy Superintendent.
I was asking for the public. I was asking for the public.
So yes, sir.
Michelle's like, yes, yes.
Good. That's great to know.
Okay. So that was a leading question because I want to make sure that people know
everyone are aware
that this stuff
yes,
is public on social media. Several schools advertised the fact that they were having these deep dives, and
yes, sir.
Encourage those who are interested in their schools to ask their principals and take a look.
Yes, sir.
Right. Leslie?
Okay. So,
yes, ma'am.
Yeah, no, I'm loving your slide 12 here, your next steps thing, and the appendix disaggregated. Look
Yes,
forward to hearing another report when more stuff is looked through. But to Jason specifically, so the school improvement plans, like how they're reacting to those, are those all able to link from like one page on the APS home website, or do you have to go pal through everybody's? And does somebody manage the fact from the district level to make sure that all the school improvement plans are up and are accessible on every school's website?
Yes, ma'am.
I know that's not you. I'm just throwing it out there.
Certainly. That's a great idea. I will say that to your point about the disaggregated data, last year the Governor's Office of Student Achievement did not release disaggregated data until December 28th of 2018. And so I'm very proud of this administration and their commitment to releasing these data so early and so quickly. And I want to thank my team and their hard work. They're upstairs continuing to do this to prepare for schools as they roll out, because it takes a lot of work to make sure we protect our students' privacy of those data. And so when we get these, we take a lot of time to vet it, and we put it out there publicly very quickly in this presentation. We've already published 3 blog posts as well. As soon as we have more disaggregated data publicly available, we will. But I do just want to acknowledge that last year that wasn't released publicly by a state agency until December 28th. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, and so as part of, on the day of the rollout, just to make it clear to the public, that is when we're starting to see those. So we were rolling out the assessment results, and at the same time, you're getting the first round of the disaggregated data. So what we do, which is our longstanding practice, is we push out everything we have. Then we start the second round of cleanup as soon as we get the data. Michael's right. December versus, the month of August, late July, August is a big difference. So we're very pleased about that. And as soon as we get that, we'll push it out to the board. Everything's cleaned up, and we'll do, another round of making sure that that's out in our data digs and everything else. And so when you're doing your strategic planning, since y'all are talking a lot about that, I just want to be clear, like, in addition to milestones, not that we're going back to that other conversation, but just to be crystal clear, school profiles and all that individual data is available publicly. So you've got CCRPI, beating the odds, milestones, Michael, help me out with more, student growth climate
percentiles.
star,
Yes,
climate survey, attendance,
Yes, ma'am.
student enrollment
Yes, ma'am.
trends. I mean, it's a lot. So, and then we'll add on, which we'll have ready to go by the time we start the strategic planning, the detailed disaggregated data as quickly as we can.
As quickly as possible.
Yep, so we'll just keep pushing it out, and as we work our way through the fall, people will see more and more of those details.
Yes.
But it is available.
Yes.
And we can use all that right away.
Yes. And so I will say that the 2019 milestones data is already available not only in the blog post, but in the school profiles that you can see with all the other data that Dr. Kerstarfin mentioned. We were able to update that on the day of the state release. Again, a testament to the investment that the board has made in being transparent. We were able to push that out the same day as the state release. I did want to make a note that the school improvement plans are available upon request. So if any of the public would like to see it, not all schools have chosen to post it on the website, so there is not one hub. They aren't formatted for external purposes. They're just internal working documents, essentially to make sure that schools are aligned with their strategic priorities for the year.
Isha.
Yeah, I think that was my conversation. I apologize for the hesitation because I was trying to synthesize what will be the next steps as we disaggregate this data and wanting to ask the administration what will be the next level of conversation beyond just looking at the numbers. I mean, we still see we do have some, we have some work to do. And we were having a conversation about, some of the schools that are struggling that we know historically have struggled, what the context, like resources, things, external factors where, they start at 2% and we see this 11% jump. So you see this growth, but is it still it's still not enough? And so I think my question is, and I think Dr. C hinged on it, is I think that's going to be our key importance of the strategic plan as we move in this conversation of truly assessing, developing, and planning what's next, so we can see more green than we are seeing red. So my question is, what is the next level of conversation, not so much the numerical data, but more of the anecdotal, substantive data, like what we're actually seeing, and what's the next level of the conversation should go from there?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair question. I just did a speech today at Rotary that Michael and other team members, helped work on. And you're right. I mean, there are schools that literally had single-digit proficiency rates. I mean, single-digit like 1 and 2, right? So it was really bad. There are schools, partners, folks on the front line that are, producing results that are 6 times, 7 times better. But to your point, Board Member Collins, it is it's still like in the teens. And so our average on any subject area in any grade level around proficiency hovers at around 35, 36%. And so everybody else, if you're not developing and above in that number, then you are, I mean, if you're not proficient and above in that number, you're developing or beginning. And so that means it's a 2/3, 1/3 mix. And when you get into the 2/3 in the red part about beginning, it is incredibly sobering. And so we have 3 of the poorest schools in the state of Georgia right here in Atlanta: Thomasville Heights, Fane, Boyd, and we have other super high poverty schools that are trapped in intergenerational poverty. So the work and the lift around what you said about like anecdotal, in addition to milestones and things, because you can look at some of these schools and see that they are actually, I mean, Hollis is another example where you have Bethune that's in a new design. You can see where people are absolutely making gains. I mean, we are doing that, making gains, making progress. Is it enough? No. And given where some of the schools are, I would argue, which is what I said today, it's immoral. And it has been long-standing, not just from this board or the last board, or but people can point to generations of families who've suffered through this. So what we are trying to do is incredibly deep work. So it's going to be important. And I really appreciate what people are saying about like the framework and labeling or giving a score or a report card. We have to be really careful about that, because moving in a way that really tells the whole story is hard and complicated. So we don't want to Board Member Mitchell's point, you know, squash the hope and the movement that some of these schools are doing. But at the same time, we have to own up to our responsibility today, whether we created it or not, which we didn't, on taking a school that is in the teens, but really pulled itself up out of the very bottom and has everything working against it in its neighborhood. Food deserts, you know, unstable housing. I mean, yeah, we talked about the last census where the average white family earns $167,000 a year. The average black family in Atlanta is $23,000. So, I mean, there's a big disparity. And for us to tell the story that doesn't crush the schools that we are keeping, and they are going to stay open, and they're going to serve communities, and helping them through that lift is really the next round of work. So it's going to be quantitative. We're going to have to report on the facts of the quantitative data. But where I think like and I do think we need something for us that speaks to the Atlanta community when it comes to this accountability framework. But what is it that we would also want to see in these schools that are really unsticking themselves, that would say, we know they're on the move, and while we know they have to make these achievements and actually hit the mark at some point, giving them credit, giving them the acknowledgement they deserve for really starting to change the game for communities that have been disenfranchised forever. So capturing that, I think, is hard. Figuring out how we can do that in a way where the public feels comfortable about that isn't just a thumbs up, thumbs down, you met, you did not meet, you grew. I mean, how do we capture that? I think is part of what we have to hear from in our community. What would our communities want to see to feel comfortable if that was a measure we were going to report on? Even if it isn't, like you said, like just about the quantifiable number. How do we capture the rest of the stories so that communities can have a neighborhood school and they can see that neighborhood school grow and change over time? So I think that is at the heart of what the work is going to be this fall, especially because I think we've kind of figured out our, kind of which schools are going to be serving our neighborhoods, and then we have to really give them that support to continue to lift them.
And I think with that, just to add just my, comment is, the charge to us not only as a board, but the charge to, I think, to the community and the city as a whole, because many of the schools where I represent, I've seen progress in that area, and I constantly have this debate about it's not a when all else fail, blame the schools. Like, we have to look at this collectivism that needs to take place in our communities. And just an example we see, and I'm going to shout out Hutchinson, with the proficiency they've had in reading. I know for a fact, just visiting that school myself several times this year, the partnership with Delta, and this just wasn't a, go in, write a check, donate books and leave. Like, they corralled their entire staff, their employees, to come and be so devoted to working with individual children and reading the entire year. And that was sparked by a Delta employee that was actually a Hutchinson graduate, that was a product of that community that, that corralled the employees to give back to their school. And within 1 year, we see a double digit, 25% proficiency. Well, we still have work, but I could tell you last year or 2 years ago, it was single digits.
It's 17 percentage points. One is 7 and one is 17 percentage points. And they also raised the money for us to have reading specialists at those schools.
Yeah, in ELA, they rose 14.9 percentage points in 1 year.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I know it, I mean, and where you start and where you add the 14 and end up where you are, yeah, it's still a very sobering number. But it's the work inside, the details that still gives people hope and helps us accelerate and keep a sense of urgency about moving these schools and being respectful to them, as Board Member Mitchell said, that they're still in the school, they're still working in the school. There's no point at this juncture for us to try to use a superficial label on them. It's just, how do we report the truth to our communities so they know where we are and can actually support us in the strategies that we're using to improve outcomes for students. So I mean, for me, what you said, Board Member Collins, I think that is at the heart of what we have to figure out in the next few months before we bring forward the next strategic plan.
Okay. Candace Wood Jackson.
Thank you. I didn't know if the K was like your slang for my name. Thank you. I second and third and fourth and fifth everything that Dr. Karstafen and Board Member Collins and Mitchell and everybody has just said about all of this data.
Yes, ma'am.
I may have missed this. I also could do this myself, but is there a way to get a list of schools that have had can we say, let me start over. I want to focus on growth, to Board Member Collins' point, and I would love to see a list of schools that have grown by a certain number of percentage points that, in your opinion, represents some significant growth. So, for example, if a 5 percentage point increase has some statistical significance to you based on your analysis of the entire data, maybe we would set that as the bar and develop a list of schools that have gotten at that 5 or above measure. And then I'd also like to see that over time as well. And then, of course, the idea behind this being, to Dr. Steve's point a moment ago, that, as to some of those schools, we probably could, off the top of our head, let alone by looking through research, figure out what programs or partnerships or reading specialist deals are happening at those schools that we may or may not be able to attribute to those increases. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that something that we could put together?
Thank you. And so there are just a couple examples I want to shout out while we're doing the data stuff. I mean, Hope Hill Elementary School has done an extraordinary job. I mean, their leadership team, the associate soup, I mean, all of them have done a great job. And that's comparing poor African American, name a disaggregated group, to like students in other parts of the district where the demographics are similar and they are still able to kind of do a heavier lift, like you said, like a certain extra level of proficiency or outcome data. West Manor, of course, is still a star elementary school, equally as impressive. We talked about KIPP Vision for middle schools. I mean, they have similar APS, African American poor demographics, but they perform at the same level of Inman and Sutton, and I think even exceeding.
Relative to their relative poverty.
Yeah, to the relative populations. So, I mean, we have a couple of examples where we could do case studies. I mean, if we really wanted, but we don't, given what we do, we don't have enough people, we don't have enough expertise, but these are examples of things, like if we really wanted to mine that out and get it done the right way, this could be the direction for how we do our future work, which is much better, in my opinion, than year-to-year comparisons. While we will do them, and that is kind of how the whole rest of the world works, I think we got to figure out what works for us and how we can actually demonstrate those exceptional models. And whether that's the professional learning, we were here with CREATE earlier, whether that's professional learning or how academics are being, how programming is being implemented in schools, or leadership, structures, whatever that is, knowing what that is and investing in those practices and making those resources available, I think it'd be a game changer for us.
And then, of course, the converse of that is the converse of everything you just said and what I asked for. And maybe we don't need to, make a list of those types of examples, but how are we being most efficient with our spending if we could also look at the, decreases and where we're not seeing the same types of growth?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Anything else? Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Lisa Bracken, CFO, is going to provide the fiscal year 2020 general fund monthly update, along with some reports on millage process, cash flow, the tax anticipation note, student activity reports, budget adjustments, and more.
So exciting.
Well, we're excited because you're bringing the money for the raises.
We hope so. Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
Okay.
So good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dr. Karstafen. Today I will be presenting those topics. We're going to chop it into 3 sections, one around millage cash flow and the need for a TAN. Then I will present the quarterly update and finally proposed budget adjustments. So, after 3 public hearings and multiple advertisements on both our APS webpage and in the AJC, the board did adopt a millage rate of 20.740 mils on July 29th. This is the same millage rate as for FY 2019, when the board reduced the millage by 1 mil and returned approximately $33 million to taxpayers. The Atlanta City Council has approved that millage at their meeting earlier today, and so the next step is to get those rates to the tax commissioner's office and send bills, hopefully sooner rather than later. On slide 4, we see a chart that we've become familiar with. While the FY20 is not reflected here, we are able to see the historical spending trend for this and all school districts that depend on property taxes with an annual billing cycle. August through October represent the lowest in cash reserves for our accounts. As you can see, even a small delay in billing requires us to raise cash to cover the recurring cost of the district, including payroll, payments to charters, and other operational costs. While we believe that bills could go out as early as August 15th, which would be the earliest billing date since 2016, we have not received that firm confirmation to that effect from the tax commissioner's office. Also, although Fulton County and the Department of Revenue have recently settled concerns over the 2017 and 2018 digests, those have not yet been certified. Therefore, we've learned that Fulton County does anticipate seeking a TCO, or a temporary collection order, that would authorize the tax commissioner to send bills. The date of that TCO is currently scheduled for August 9th. Because of so many complicated and complex factors that could still affect the billing date, we believe that we do need to plan for a delay. The way that this district can quickly acquire cash is through the sale of a TAN, or a tax anticipation note. This is a method that APS has used each year since FY 2017. This chart reflects the actual TAN values, interest rate, and cost of the TAN for the past 3 years. We are currently showing 2 scenarios for FY 2020. Today, we will be asking you for authority to borrow up to $120 million. That is a worst-case scenario amount. Recall that last year, around the same time, we asked for the authority to borrow up to $175 million, but ended up needing to borrow only $60 million. If bills go out as planned on August 15th, we plan to borrow around $60 to $70 million. At $70 million and with an interest rate of between 1% and 2%, interest cost will be between $255,000 and $510,000. PFM, our financial advisors, will present the outcome of the sale at a special called meeting on August 12th at 6:00 p.m. On slide 6, you'll find the summary for the FY 2019 fourth quarter student activity funds report. For FY 19, schools collected $5.34 million in activity funds and spent around 99.6% of those funds. Revenue increased $720,000 or 38% from quarter 3 and are up $310,000 from last year. Expenditures increased to $930,000 or 59% from quarter 3 and are up $300,000 from last year. Revenue and expenditures are in alignment with the adopted budget for FY 2019. The detailed report can be found in agenda item 12.05. Finally, I am bringing 3 budget adjustments today. The first is an increase of $7.5 million in both revenue and expenditures for the general fund. As discussed throughout our budget development process, the original FY 2020 budget was developed using conservative growth assumptions for the Fulton County Digest, and we were cautious in waiting to assess the full impact of the first year of Senate Bill 485, which increased the homestead exemption by $20,000 per household. Exemptions did go up by 64% and 54% for DeKalb and Fulton respectively, removing an additional $26.8 million from our available digest. While not all related to Senate Bill 485, we can assume the vast majority is attributable to the increase in homestead exemptions. Also, growth in TADS continues to outpace the growth in the rest of the city. Even with these offsetting factors, growth and new development is slightly stronger than anticipated. With all of that, I feel comfortable adjusting the revenue assumptions for local revenue up by $7.5 million or 1.3%. I'll discuss more about the specifics of that salary impact, especially on compensation, in the next 2 slides. But I also have 2 special revenue adjustments first. An increase to revenue and expenditures for Title 1A, improving academic achievement by $3.3 million, and an increase to revenue and expenditures for Title 2A, improving teacher quality by $1.2 million. The current allotment came in higher than was initially projected. Details for those adjustments can be found in Agenda Item 9.01. Agenda Item 12.06 includes the detailed information report for special revenue adjustments less than $1 million that have occurred in June and July. So, to the good stuff. While the additional revenue from the property taxes digest will also go to plug some holes in the transportation budget for this year, the vast majority will go to funding the compensation and scenarios as presented by Sky Duckett at our monthly budget commission meetings going all the way back to February. The fully funded compensation strategy means that year-over-year teacher pay increases will go up on average 4.85% or about $3,000 per teacher. Instructional support pay will increase on average 3.2%. Non-teacher pay grades 125 through 150 will increase by 2.2%. Non-teacher pay grades 111 through 124 will increase 2.45%. One-time payment eligible for payments for eligible teachers and instructional support staff who are off scale will be $3,000. Non-instructional support staff who are eligible will receive $1,000 one-time payments. Other compensation increases not directly tied to the salary scales include an increase to teacher career pathway stipends for department chairs at middle school and high school, stipends for grade level team leads at elementary school and cooperating teachers, new stipends for lead campus space mentors, and the implementation of the remaining pay parity recommendations to include supplements and stipends for JROTC and converting 42 hourly bus monitors and 38 special education paraprofessionals to full-time positions with benefits. That concludes my presentation at this time, and I'm available for any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much. Any questions from board members? Going once, twice. Ishay. You got to turn your...
Sorry, what could we possibly anticipate, or is that a conversation that we need to have at a future date in regards to the impact of appeals on the adjustment and the increased revenue? And the second part, I don't know if we're going to have a budget meeting about it. Is there any conversation of moving some of those funds back into our reserves or, the reserves, yeah.
Sure. So part of the reason that we're able to do the increase this year is that we actually anticipated a higher or losing more from the appeals last year than we did. Recall last year, the reason the digest was not approved was an unprecedented number of appeals. We anticipated losing 4 to 5% of the digest through those appeals. We actually lost 3% of the 2019 digest. So while many people appealed, not as many of those appeals resulted in lowered billings than we had anticipated. This year, the vast majority of the increase in our digest is due to growth and new development. Only about 1.5% is due to reassessments or the valuation increases because of the work last year that brought all those values up to what was a more appropriate value. So we don't anticipate the same number of appeals or so many people appealing as they did last year. To your second question, while we don't believe that the current digest is going to allow us to return a significant amount to revenue or of additional revenue to the fund balance, we are also not planning on spending 100% of our expenditures. Just as for this year, we anticipate collecting a little higher than revenue and spending a little less than our expenditure budget, and adding to fund balance in that way. However, we have not made a targeted effort to grow fund balance. We have not earmarked a certain amount of funds that we are choosing to not spend to direct to the fund balance. So if we wanted to talk about that as part of a board priority during the FY 2020 budget parameters planning, those meetings will start back up in September.
Thank you so much, Lisa.
All right, thanks.
Oh, sorry.
Me?
Yep.
I just wanted to say thank you to Lisa and her team. I don't think you've had a normal year ever in Atlanta Public Schools. And this is, how long have you been here?
4 years.
4 years, right. And so I choke up every time I see a TAN and we have to pay interest. Mm-hmm. I choke up every time we have to do a temporary collection order. Just choke. I mean, it's just been, and I've been here 5 years, starting my 6th. So we've been through a lot. And my point is just that you do your job with such grace and warm enthusiasm, but not over the top. I know that it's hard to smile about it all the time and still come to meetings to give us our bad news and things of that sort. But you've done an amazing job setting us up to be able to quickly trigger the rest of the $3,000 raise for the governor and for teachers. And I don't know if any teachers have written you and said thank you, but on their behalf, I say thank you because it's just, it doesn't happen by accident. It happens because you plan it. I'd also like to shout out the chair of the Budget Commission, Nancy Meister, who goes through the sausage making behind the scenes before we're able to try to communicate all this to the board. And no matter day or night, whenever something gets analyzed, you've been incredibly responsive. And so we appreciate that, which allows us to quickly turn it over to board members to be able to do their work and make decisions. But thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank
Absolutely.
you, Nancy Meister and the board, for taking the vote, for moving quickly when the money finally shook loose, and thank you to our taxpayers for paying their taxes and for making it possible for APS to give those raises.
Absolutely.
Hear, hear.
Yes, sir. Start the timer. Good afternoon, everyone. Very excited to present to the board and our community the district's back-to-school readiness plan. No one does day one like Atlanta Public Schools, much like that budget comment. The day one preparation doesn't happen by accident either. There's a ton of planning, dedication, focused execution, a lot of hiccups, and that we have to smooth back over so that not only do we have a great day one, but day 2, 3, and the rest of the school year. I'd like to thank Emily Massey and, David, help me with Larry Wallace, who do such a great job of herding the cats and getting the team together so that we can present, be ready for the day one, but also present to the public today. This is kind of, depending on the start of the school year, the last few years we started super early, so this is more of a readiness report than it is a day one report. So we don't start until Monday, August 12th, but you'll see kind of how things are shaping up. I want to provide you an overview of the deliberate process that we take. For the 6th year in a row, we've embarked on Day One Be There campaign with goals to continue to increase our attendance and create awareness about the importance of being in school. Research supports that, and we want our families to understand that. Every day is a teachable moment, and we need them in school actually getting off to a good start. To that end, we've conducted massive interviews, promos. There are a variety of TV, radio, online, print media outlets, CBS 46, Fox 5, WSB TV, 11 Alive, ATL 26, the AJC, V103, WAOK, AM, Northside Neighbor, WXIA, Atlanta and Company. I mean, every year the list gets bigger. We've distributed yard signs. We've advertised the Back to School Bash. We've done 120 MARTA trains throughout July. And so it's a big push for us to do the Back to School Bash on Saturday, August 10th, and then also to be ready for Day One, which is August 12th. Our signature event is that Back to School Bash. It's our 5th annual Back to School Bash. We have really evolved and grown over time. We are going to distribute upwards of 6,000 backpacks filled with school supplies for students. Every year it gets better, quality stuff, and more people want to participate. We have 125 community partners, agencies, exhibitors who are going to provide information about what's happening in school, what's happening after school. More than 200 parent and community organizations, APS employees, high school students are going to be volunteers donating their time to make this possible. We provided, like I said, tons of promos through a wide range of media outlets in preparation for Saturday and Monday. Our colleagues in teaching and learning have had lots of big tasks. Olivine Roberts leads a lot of this work and has done an amazing job. Summer transition is critical for rising pre-K and kindergarten students. We've had teachers and leaders in various trainings across the district. Approximately 300 new teachers have participated in our 5-day new teacher orientation. And orientation for new principals and assistant principals is also available, and we have implemented that as well. Student services, Katika Lovett is our new lead for that for this school year. They've been hard at work updating our handbook, ensuring that special educational regional classes are ready, and providing appropriate trainings given what they do. Student assignment and records registered more than 250 students during our centralized summer registration, and coordinated transfer of records for rising 6th and 9th graders. The new Bridge Program initiative offered rising 6th and 9th graders opportunities to experience their new learning environments and get off to a good start. And over the summer, we engaged students in 49 Power Up programs, ranging from K-8 STEAM camps to high school fine arts. Our ops team also hard at work. They're focused on transportation, nutrition, facilities, and security. Starting with facilities, they've had to, of course, clean all the schools. They've completed a number of projects, including newly renovated buildings for Beecher Hills, Gideon's, Tuskegee Airman Global Academy, Harper Archer, and Hollis Innovation. They've moved Hutchinson and Humphreys into temporary locations for their renovations. HVAC summer projects have been completed at Bolton, Brandon Primary, Scott, Slater, and Whiteford, while floors were replaced at Brandon, M. Agnes Jones, Scott, and Smith Primary. And of course, we're going back through, given the HVAC mold challenges with the summer and the heat and the water. We're checking all of that one more time before the start of the school year. Our transportation department continues to recruit bus drivers. We hired and trained 14 new operators in time for the school year. On July 31st, we finalized routes. Postcards are in the mail, and today they are available on the APS website. The bus maintenance has been ongoing, but we expect 49 new buses to hit the streets this year. And our transportation call center opened on July 25th. We staff them now with several center representatives. Turning to nutrition, the most exciting news is about the community eligibility provision The free breakfast and lunch will be available across the school district, 77 APS schools, including some of our charters who use our new food company, Southwest Food Service Excellence. They'll also be able to do this. But we have a whole new menu for adults and non-students. They can eat the new great food. I've been following stuff on Facebook because some of the charter schools have opened earlier than APS. We're getting tons of great feedback from families and kids and staff. We're keeping our fingers crossed that we're going to continue down this path once everybody opens on the first day of school, but we're actually prepared for it. Our safety and security team has created a bike patrol, hired 6 officers to support our charter and partner schools. We've done the Stop the Bleed training, upgraded our cameras at several schools, all door access, intercoms, clocks, AEDs, all that's like going down. And we're deploying the new video management system district-wide and distributed surveys to determine the best use of the Georgia Department of Ed grant that the governor has provided for every school in Georgia. As always, our accountability and tech team have been working diligently. It's just so much that they've done. It's like they do everything, LED panels to like copiers, and then all of the data work that you just saw presented is their ongoing work, including the upcoming disaggregated data for milestones. So they are super busy. Finance, as you just heard from Lisa, is ready to go. They're on track to roll out those raises, to make sure that we have the tax anticipation note ready to go, and have done a lot of other support pieces for the school system. In human resources, we're proud to report that we're starting school with 100% of our principal and AP vacancies filled, and only 10, no, is it 10 or 6? It's 6. It's 6 today. I know, it keeps going. So we get under 10, which was our goal, to have the 6th year. I mean, this is good stuff. But today it's 6, and I think y'all did a smashing job with the autism hires, and you just closed another gap. We have all of our bus drivers. We have we're just down to the teachers, right? That's it. And paraprofessionals and some SROs. It's a handful, but y'all are really almost at the finish line. So congratulations, Sky and your team. Great job. And I also just want to remind everyone, just knock on wood that we hold all those. Find something that's really wood in this room. But I don't know, lowest bidder. But I just want to take the opportunity to remind parents that day 1 is Monday, August the 12th. Please figure out where your bus stop is. Figure out your route to school. Get up. Just remember, we serve breakfast and lunch, so just get in line. You forgot to, you ran out of time. It's okay. We're ready for you. Any kid can eat. We're not pressed about that, so you don't have to worry. We need our parents to pay special attention to immunizations this year. We've been trying to contact you, but immunization records have to be up to date. And we're strictly enforcing these expectations, so they have to be on file before the student can start the first day. If you're not sure, please reach out to your child's school. I recognize that there have been some clunky data exchanges when people have come to school, so we're raising that again with our day 1 team so that people can double check that one more time. Mr. Chair, members of the board, I know that y'all have a tight timeline tonight, but that concludes my presentation about day 1 readiness.
All right.
You told me I had to cut it
Well,
down.
thank you so much for that, Dr. Starfin, and shout out to you and your team for having for being day 1 ready. It feels like August 12th came fast, and I'm sure it came faster for those on staff, on the team, and the board looks forward to joining everyone, and not only on the first day of school, but also at the Back to School Bash this Saturday. Questions from the board? Michelle?
Thank you so much for the presentation. I want to go back to the nutrition. Is it all schools or just the Title I schools? I'm being told that it is all schools, so I'd just like to get some clarity, and then I have a follow-up.
Yeah, thank you, Board Member Olympiadis. It is all schools. So each year with CEP, we've been able to add a couple of schools, but given the application process this year from the state, and we did apply, and so I want to thank Marilyn Hughes for doing that and Larry Hoskins for ensuring that APS was able to fully participate. So we're very excited about this opportunity. And the key is this, I know this is such a little detail, but it's important, right? You can't go up and just pick, like, I just want a milk, and you go sit down, but you do have to go up and get a meal, eat what you want, but, and even if you bring your lunch and you want more food, it's okay. Just get in line and get a tray and get a meal. I think, it is a great gift, and the best part about it is we're already here, like I said, hearing good results about the food. So apparently cheese pizza is already #1 on the list, and as you can probably expect, but I've had some bad cheese pizzas, but it seems like it's already off to a good start.
Okay, with that being said, I of course, I have 3 kids. They all have accounts. They do take their lunches to school. Their accounts have balances on them. And I know that there's many folks in my community who've already reached out who said that they would like to contribute money to some sort of food bank fund for the school district. I'm happy to have my remaining balances, which is, I don't even know if it's $20 a kid, just go into that instead of me trying to get a reimbursement check. And I don't know how long that's going to take for 3 kids. But, just to take those funds and stream them in so that we can start providing the supports in the communities that need us, with families that might need groceries over a weekend, or students who might need an extra where we don't have them in all our communities. I do know that there's many folks that, again, in my community who are very interested in still offering money for their children to pay for lunch, so that the money can be used to support the children in our district who need food more than just breakfast and lunch.
Yeah.
So I just would like to share that with you and allow you and your team to figure out some sort of online way to do that, or offer parents that carry balances to allow them to just donate that money to a fund so that we can start that work.
Yeah, thank you, Board Member Olympiadis. That's incredibly generous. And I will charge David and Larry to get with Dr. Hughes and figure out how we might be able to make that possible. Our families are in deep need, and that would be greatly appreciated. I'll also ask our general counsel to just make sure we're checking the box on any federal or state, issue that we might need to do as well. But we'll coordinate and we'll report back to you. Thank you for the idea.
I know if we had advertised that, completely optional, but advertise that in many of our neighborhoods, I'm sure a lot of parents, particularly as it relates to food, would contribute to that. Related to that is debt. Because of this program, would there be no debt for students this year related to lunches and breakfasts? Because I know a constant concern for families is whether students are being called out for having debt. I know we don't do that in APS, but it will always come back to that. I think the New York Times article is what one of the things that sparked it. So does that mean that there won't be any of that this year?
Right. So, Mr. Chair, members of the board, it is my understanding that under this design, there is no accumulated debt for individual students, correct? Okay, and I will verify that one more time to make sure we're not talking out of turn as it relates to the guidance from the state. So that will be kind of like another thing that we don't have to worry about. And for those people who have offered to pay down school debt and things of that sort, we'll allow them to redirect their resources to other things that our families may need. So, so we will double check with that, and when we follow up with Board Member Olympiadis's offer, I will make sure that clarity is double checked, and so that we can communicate it appropriately.
Any other questions? Thank you so much, Dr. Starfin. Good luck to you and your team on day 1. With that, I believe that is it. Can I get a motion to, Mr. General Counsel? Mr. General Counsel, your last one. Maybe.
Yeah.
I should say that on the agenda today is an item to have Nina Gupta, who's in the crowd, appointed as general counsel, replacing Glenn Brock, who has been general counsel for the last 4 years. So I think this is a good 5 years. 5 years. That's right.
Since before day one.
Before day one.
Before I was super.
I remember that meeting. It went until like 2 o'clock in the morning.
So do I.
Yeah. I think now is the right time to wish Glenn well and thank him for all that he's done in his capacity of general counsel to this district. So thank you, Glenn.
Thank you.
So whether we vote on Nina or not, I think this is probably the last time we'll ask you this question. Is there need for executive session?
You do have a need to discuss a personnel matter.
Can I get a motion? So moved. Been probably moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We will now retreat into executive session. As always, thank you for taking the time to speak with us. We always appreciate your feedback, and now we will move into our legislative portion of today's meeting. As we begin, it's with heavy hearts that we mourn the deaths of the two that resulted from the two mass shootings in El Paso, Texas, and Dayton, Ohio. So I'd like to have a moment of silence to remember those whose lives were lost. Thank you. Later today, the school board will be releasing a statement on those tragedies. Thanks to the leadership of Candace Wood Jackson and others on the board, will be submitting a statement. But for the sake of our children, our fellow Americans, our civil society, and the safety of all people living in the United States, these gun-related tragedies must end. In this regard, we reiterate the demand that we made in an April 2018 board resolution for effective and comprehensive action from the federal government to protect our school children from gun violence. We also call, again, for a second time on Congress to appropriate adequate new funds to increase the number of counselors, mental health staff, psychologists, and social workers in our schools. With that, I will move on to my comments. To start, I want to thank our teachers and staff. I want to welcome them back to school as we prepare for day one and the 2019-2020 school year, which officially starts next Monday, August 12th. We may be getting a later start for the school year, but I know that Superintendent Dr. Christopherson and her entire team have filled most of their days of the summer in preparation of another amazing school year. Because of Dr. Christopherson, our central office staff, our principals, our teachers, and students, no one kicks off a school year like Atlanta Public Schools. It starts with the APS Back to School Bash, which will be held from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. this Saturday, August 10th, at the Georgia World Congress Center. This is a free event and is exclusively for Atlanta Public Schools students and their families, with more than 50 exhibitors, fun activities for children, free health screenings, and educational, after-school, and community resources. Students who present their APS report card will get a free backpack filled with school supplies. More details and shuttle service information is available at www.atlantapublicsschools.us/back-to-school. And then there is day one itself. Speaking for myself, I always enjoy visiting schools on the first day of school, and I will be joining Dr. Christarfin as we go school to school, visiting classrooms, meeting with students, teachers, principals, and staff to wish them a successful school year. It's particularly special for me this year because my son will be starting pre-K at Bolton Academy this year. So it's very exciting and a little bit different than in years past. Nevertheless, every year is energizing, exciting, and heartwarming, and I cannot wait because because I know that we will have a great start to this school year. At this time, I want to note that later in this meeting, the board will vote on a resolution to support the 2020 census, and I want to encourage every citizen in the city of Atlanta to stand up and be counted. This resolution was drafted by the Council of Great City Schools. We are proud to join our peer school districts across the country in stressing the importance of participating in the census, as it ensures all of us that we have fair representation, access to essential services, and strong economic development. The census provides official counts of communities that serve as the basis of federal education funding allocated to our schools over the next 10 years. Specifically, the federal programs serving our students living in poverty and students with disabilities will be impacted by these numbers. Historically, the census has undercounted populations in large urban areas such as ours. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, populations most at risk of being undercounted include young children, people of color, low-income households, language minority families, foreign-born residents, and households with limited internet access. So it is vital that everyone be counted here in Atlanta and in Atlanta Public Schools. We are committed to ensure that everyone in the APS community is included in the 2020 census, and we hope that you join us. At this time, I would like to ask Board Member Candace Wood Jackson, who represents at-large Seat 7, to come forward to recognize Jasmine Maddox.
Good evening. Okay, let's play a game. I'm going to list just some of the accomplishments that the person I'm honoring tonight has achieved in her life so far, and you're going to guess her age, but you're going to keep it to yourself, so don't say it out loud. Just start thinking, how old is this person? So here's some of the stuff, just some, that she's done. She's led a grassroots campaign to help marginalized people gain access to resources, including resources particularly for individuals with disabilities. She's designed her own undergraduate major at a college, which is a major in education policy and ethnic studies with a public service and leadership concentration. She's advocated for minority and gender accessibilities on her college campus by, for example, organizing the implementation of menstruation trash cans in residence halls throughout her college. She later organized and helped lead a lecture on identity politics with a senior director of a national association, the American Association of People with Disabilities. She developed an entire curriculum for undergraduate students to study the intersections of various identities and traits, including race, gender, and disability. She worked for the city of Atlanta and participated in her local NPU, Neighborhood Planning Unit, advocating for accessibility for the entire city, including citizens with disabilities. And she interned with the Uncommon Schools in Boston and taught 6th grade in that position. And she also won the Association on Higher Education and Disability 2019 National Scholarship, which means she represents the entire United States for her outstanding disability advocacy. And she also intends to run for office in the future. So that's a lot. That's not even all of it. But don't say what you think she is. But if I had heard that, I would think that judging by these accomplishments, which are approximately 15 times those of my own, this person would be at least my age, which is, I'm not going to tell you, an ambiguous maybe 30-something. Well, that is a wrong guess, and if you were guessing somewhere in that neighborhood, you would also be wrong. The person that I am honoring tonight is just 21 years old. I'm honoring Jasmine Maddox, who is here tonight, and you can stay seated for a second, Jasmine, because I have more great things to say about you. Listen, Jasmine is a graduate of the Atlanta Public Schools. And as you guys, if you were here earlier today or listening earlier, heard, we just recently this March passed a portrait of a graduate, which is a vision for what we want all of our graduates to be once they graduate from our schools. Jasmine exemplifies that. She is self-reflective and globally connected. She is goal-oriented. She is resourceful and driven, and she's a critical thinker. Jasmine believes that all people, including and probably most importantly, people from marginalized groups and those with disabilities, deserve to live full, happy, inclusive lives. She's smart, she's determined, she's willing to stand up on her beliefs, even to the point of challenging you. She's challenged me on many occasions. And her age has not been a barrier to her. It has not been an excuse. She has achieved and out-achieved her peers of her age group and even me. I'm proud to call Jasmine a former student, a mentee, and even a role model of mine. Jasmine, you've done a great job turning challenges into opportunities for growth. And I recognize you tonight for all you've done in your few years on this earth. And I am so looking forward to all the things that you have left in store for all of us. So I want you to come up and get recognized. Thank you, Jasmine.
All right, thank you for that. And congratulations, Jasmine. All right, finally, I don't need to remind anyone that the District 2 seat on the Board of Education remains vacant. There is no one sitting over there now, but I will do it anyway. I do want to remind all eligible voters that the election to fill this seat will be held on Tuesday, September 17th. A runoff, if necessary, would be held on October 15th. As with every election, it is vital that everyone vote. So we need everyone to help us get out the vote. And with that, I will now invite Dr. Kastarfin to make her own remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome everyone to the new school year. I certainly believe that APS provides a great distinctive back-to-school vibe, and we expect the 2019-2020 school year to kick off in the same way, with a lot of gusto, a lot of energy, and a lot of good things launching at the outset. As with Chair Estevez, I can't wait to see our students come back to school. But as you can tell from the recap you're about to hear from our work sessions, we have been incredibly busy getting ready. David Jernigan kicked us off earlier with a board-related goal topic called professional learning. It's all about how we train and support, especially our teachers, to be prepared for our students, but also to help us continue to transition our students to higher outcomes during the school year. It's also about building the capacity of non-academic staff, our support staff, but it enriches not only their individual knowledge and skills, but it's to help people grow at a professional, grow in their professional practice and to find a pathway up through Atlanta Public Schools. While the district's focus has been on academic capacity for the past 5 years, we have been turning more and more attention to other staff members who are the support staff to our organization. Angela King-Smith, the Chief Engagement Officer, provided the update on the development of our new 5-year strategic plan. That plan, if approved in December, will run through 2025. Our current vision, mission, core values, and guiding principles will be the foundation of that work, but it also includes the board's new work on the excellent schools model, including the portrait of a graduate and the board's new ethics policy. In fact, the cluster community meetings begin just next week, and when we bring the final draft for consideration for the board, we'll have it on the agenda in December for potential action. After that, we heard a presentation from Michael Lamont, the Executive Director of Data and Information Group. He thoroughly explained the 2019 Georgia Milestones results. With these results, APS achieved its highest ever rates of proficiency on the Georgia Milestones. The district also achieved year-over-year gains in the percentage of students scoring proficient and above on 21 of 24 assessments. That's 88%. When you compare that to 2017 or 2016, it was initially as low as 52%. So it's an outstanding achievement for our schools on these assessments. Among other results, 80% of APS elementary and middle schools increased the percentage of students scoring proficient and above. 76% of our schools increased the percentage of grades 9 through 12 students scoring proficient and above on end of course. And all 17 schools that received targeted or partnership support as part of the initial cohort of the APS turnaround strategy have improved their milestone proficiency rate since 2016 as well. And so we have a lot to celebrate, but there's much more work to be done. For example, the district reports lower rates of proficiency than the state in all subjects on EOG and end of course, but we did narrow the gap in end of grade tests for both science and social studies, remained flat in ELA and math, and for end of course at the upper grades, APS narrowed the gap for 6 of the 8 assessments. So I'm incredibly proud of our school district for the progress in these latest results, but I'm also energized and to embark on the next strategic planning process, which I just spoke about, to continue addressing the overall proficiency rates, especially for our lowest performing subgroups. As we build the next phase of our plan in alignment with the board's vision for excellent schools, I am optimistic that our positive momentum on the Georgia Milestones will continue. Lisa Bracken, our Chief Financial Officer, took you through the fiscal year 2020 monthly financial update, outlined the parameters of our next tax anticipation note, and explained how the district will be able to fully fund the teacher pay raises that were approved by Governor Kemp and the legislature. We prepared the fiscal year 2020 general fund budget to provide $12 million for compensation. But combined with the Fulton and DeKalb County Digest, we were able to come in about 1.2% higher than anticipated. Because of this increase, we were able to adjust our budget to give our teachers the full original compensation scenario that the governor proposed. That means our budget was up $7.5 million, and we redirected those resources to that compensation model. Pending board approval of this month's monthly adjustment, these are the following details inside of it. Teacher pay raises increased from an average of 3.3%, that's about $2,000, to an average of 4.85%, that's $3,000, the governor's proposal. Instructional support pay raises increased from an average of 2.3 to an average of 3.2. One-time payment for eligible teacher and instructional support employees who are off-step increases from $1,000 to $3,000. Non-teacher pay grades 125 through 150 receive a 1% increase in addition to the step raise previously approved. That's about 2.2%. Non-teacher pay grades 111 through 124 will receive the same step and a 1% raise previously approved. That's a total of 2.5%. One-time payment for eligible non-teaching employees who are off-step increases from $700 to $1,000. Teacher career pathway stipends increase for the department chair, middle and high school, grade level team, lead, elementary, and cooperating teacher. New stipends for lead campus-based mentors. Implement remaining pay parity recommendations for JROTC, local supplement, and stipend adjustments, and converting 42 hourly bus monitors and 38 special education paraprofessionals to full-time with benefits. We've done a lot with that budget and that $7.5 million and all the other resources that are part of the action for tonight. Teachers and other non-annual employees will receive their new fiscal year 20 compensation beginning with their first paycheck of the new school year on August 30th as normal. Then annual duty employees would receive the additional compensation plus retro pay by the September 30th paycheck. Other components like stipends and conversion to full-time benefits will come at a slightly later date. I am pleased that we are able to do this now and that our Chief Financial Officer, Lisa Bracken, was able to make that possible, and to our Human Resources Department, Sky Duckett, and others who helped the rollout of this be as seamless as possible. The board's actions tonight will solidify everything so that staff can be compensated at the direction of the governor and the legislature. And, of course, the board, because you added additional things. During the work session, I also provided a full back-to-school update and an extensive detail on the planning and execution required to pull off a successful Day One. A quick recap, this is the 6th year of our Day One Be There campaign, where we strive to increase Day One attendance, create awareness about the importance of being at school, not only the first day, but every single day. We've reached out to many TV, radio, online, print media outlets to get the word out. We've distributed yard signs to our schools and community centers, and even advertised on 120 MARTA trains during the month of July. As the chair mentioned, we geared up for the 5th annual Back to School Bash, where we expect about 10,000 students and their family members to meet up with our community partners, agencies, and exhibitors to learn about all of our programming. As he said, we're going to stuff about 6,000 backpacks and distribute them throughout the day. I want to go ahead and thank the more than 200 parents and community organizations, APS employees, and high school students who will donate their time and volunteer to make that day possible. I'm pleased to report that we are down to, is it 6 or 8? Is it 6 or 8? 6? Okay, because it was 8 2 seconds ago. Okay, we're pleased to report that we're now down to 6 teacher vacancies, of which they are hard to fill around special ed, ESOL, English, STEM categories. But just to tell you how it works, it's like we fill them and then 5 more vacancies open up. Bus drivers, we're almost completely filled there, but basically we're on track for another successful Day One and another great school year. Thank you, board, for all of your work to make it possible. I'll see you all on Saturday, August 10th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Georgia World Congress Center. Please make sure you look at the website so that you can see all the transportation options so we can help you and your families out. But come early so you can get all the good stuff. Stay so you can have a good time. And we look forward to seeing you. But we especially look forward to seeing you on Monday, August 12th, for the first day of school. So go to those websites, open your mail, make sure you know where the bus stop is. Please go to your open houses this week so you can meet your teachers, meet your principal, see how the school layout is, where the classrooms are. That's all there to support you. Don't forget your immunizations. You cannot enroll in APS and start school without them. So knock those out this week and make sure you get an appointment with your doctors. Mr. Chair, members of the board, that concludes my remarks for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Kostarfin. Would you please present the consent agenda?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I'm pleased to submit consent agenda items 5.01 through 8.03. But first, I want to also direct your attention to a couple of those consent agenda items. Under policy, 5.03 is the final approval of the language access policy that reinforces the board's commitment to family engagement by making district documents available to parents in languages other than English. Under human resources, item 6.02, the board will vote on the approval of Nina Gupta as the general counsel for Atlanta Public Schools. As the board is aware, Glenn Brock, who was appointed as general counsel by this board in 2014, when I started, plans to retire. His colleagues at Nelson Mullins have successfully represented APS for the last 5 years. Even before he became our general counsel, Mr. Brock was working on many things in APS, including managing the cheating scandal cases before my time. Glenn has worked side by side with me on so many issues the district has faced, providing strategic counsel, helping put the right processes and systems in place, building the relationships when needed, defending the school district tirelessly, and of course has been a good friend and a great team member to our senior officers. We have had you on this journey of transformation, and you stayed with us, going way above and beyond any kind of typical service I've ever seen in a general counsel. I want to thank you, and I want you to know that I'll be eternally grateful for everything you've done to help APS what it is today.
Thank you so much.
Got you. Ms. Gupta, also of Nelson Mullins, is a 15-year resident of Atlanta with nearly 20 years experience, which includes working with Mr. Brock and APS over the past 5 years, and certainly most recently on our settlement agreement with the city. I am especially pleased that she's a parent of 2 APS graduates, and I look forward to continuing working with her in her new official capacity. Finally, I wish to direct your attention to item 7.06 under finance, in which we propose to use an online school finder and application system that can serve 2 separate purposes. On one hand, which are completely distinct, by the way, on one hand, the application supports a common application process for charter schools. On the other, APS wants to use it for our general administrative transfer process for our neighborhood schools. The pilot for charter schools begins in 2021. We haven't chosen whether or not we'll use the tool, but if we did, we would begin that process in 2021, 2022. Again, these are 2 distinct uses of the same application. We would join this particular agenda item simply to make it more efficient in cost savings for the district. I now submit consent agenda items 5.01 to 8.03 to the board for approval.
Thank you, Dr. Kostarfin. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Been properly moved by Cynthia Briscoe Brown, seconded by Isha Collins. Time for discussion. I want to throw it over briefly to Cynthia Briscoe Brown to comment on some of the policy.
I just want to comment briefly on item number, and it's actually 5.04, the adoption of our language policy. This is something that some of us have been thinking about for a good while, but we are doing it now as a direct result of becoming aware that we needed to improve our services to our families who do not speak English as a first language during community meetings last winter. We heard that and we responded and then felt the need for putting that into policy so it gets baked into everything we do as a district. This is a family engagement issue because we want all of our families, all our parents, grandparents, and students to be able to be active participants in the life of our schools, regardless of the language they speak at home. We want everyone to feel welcome and to feel included in everything we do here in the district. And I think the key to it is in the very first paragraph of this policy, where we say the Atlanta Board of Education believes that the diversity of languages and cultures that form the Atlanta Public Schools community enriches us all. We are all richer and we experience a better life here in Atlanta and here in Atlanta Public Schools because of the diversity of our student body and our families, not in spite of it. This policy, therefore, will support all of our families being involved and will make it a priority for both written translation and oral interpretation in everything we do. Thank you. I'm sorry. And I want to thank LAPS, the Latin American Association of Parents for Public Schools, for their assistance in this, and also our World Languages Department, and particularly Dr. Margaret McKenzie, who was instrumental in making sure that the policy included everything we needed it to.
And thank you, Cynthia, for your leadership in getting this done with Candace and Erica on the policy committee. Getting this done in short order. I recall, I think it was November or December, apologizing to a group of parents in Spanish. It was very embarrassing, and I hope to never have to do that again. And I think this policy takes us a long way to not only the district, but also schools, keeping those parents in mind, particularly as we want them to engage more with us and with their schools, teachers, and administration. So thank you for that. Any other questions, comments on the consent agenda? All right. Oh, and I should say that Nancy Meister is joining us by phone. She was here. She's sick, medical issue. She's fine, but she's joining us by phone. So she will be voting by phone. Open the vote. Okay, thank you so much. Moving on to 9.01, which is the FY 2020 monthly budget adjustment. Can I get a motion? Properly moved by Ishay Collins, seconded by Cynthia Briscoe Brown. Is there a need for discussion? Okay, please open the vote. Okay, moving on to 10.01, which is the resolution in support of the 2020 United States Census. Can I get a motion? Oh, sorry. Let me be specific here. Is there a motion to waive first reading and approve Agenda 10.01, a resolution in support of the 2020 United States Census. Been properly moved by Ishay Collins, seconded by Cynthia Briscoe Brown. Any discussion or questions? I did want to mention that our very own Erica Mitchell is on the mayor's 2020 Census Advisory Committee. So kudos to her and working with the city and the school system as we all work together to make sure everyone is counted. Let's open the vote. Thank you. 10.02, is there a motion to approve the first reading agenda item, which is the tax anticipation note? And properly moved by Ishay Collins, seconded by Cynthia Briscoe Brown. Any discussion? Ishay?
Just really quickly for the public to understand why this is for a first read, for first reading versus any other like final approval. Waiver of first reading and moving to final approval.
Lisa, would you like to come and explain the new complicated nature of our situation?
Okay, so while we anticipate that tax bills will go out on August 15th, which would be the earliest they have gone out since 2016, we do still anticipate, we have a lot of hurdles that we still have to jump before we get there. One being a tax collection order, or a TCO, that Fulton County is going to be bringing to the courts on August 9th. That would allow the Fulton County Tax Commissioner to bill for the Fulton County taxes. So we want to see how that weighs out. Either way, we need to borrow some funds to get through the payrolls in August and September. Just because, just like anybody else, if you received your entire paycheck in 1 month for the year, it would mean that you have to really be tight in your spending, and even a delay of a couple of weeks can. For us, a payroll is about $25 million. So a little delay means a lot of money for us. So we do want to go forward with the first read tonight, which will authorize us to go up to $120 million in tax anticipation notes. That would be the worst case scenario. If bills go out on August 15th or soon after that, we anticipate borrowing no more than 60 to 70 million. The due date for those would be December 31st. We have to pay those back within the calendar year that we borrow them, and we're looking at interest rates between 1% to 2% with no more than 3%.
Just to make sure, Lisa, you did a very good job of explaining the background. But I think this is probably more of a legal question and discussion for the board. Right now, we will likely need a special called meeting next week to approve the TAN. We've approved these before. Can we, if the board desires, waive the second reading and just give approval, final approval now versus needing 2 hearings?
I think we should ask our general counsel.
He's been holding on to that. He's been waiting for that. You've been waiting for that. Glenn, let's give you a round of applause. And you may now proceed down to the crowd. And I think we should get General Counsel Nina Gupta. Yeah, Glenn's like, I'm not taking a fall for this one.
Thank you, Glenn. I appreciate the opportunity. Best practice is to do a first read and then an approval. We also want to time your approval very carefully, because once it's approved, we've got to offer it to the public and let the public have an opportunity to purchase those those bills, essentially. So we want to be very mindful about our timing. So it is our recommendation that you do a first read tonight and then call a meeting on the 12th to actually issue your TAN.
Excellent, solid legal advice.
Thank you very much. Beginner's
Madam
luck, who
General Counsel,
knows?
that is excellent. It was a setup. It was a toss-up. It was easy, just softball right to you. And you knocked it right out of the park. Thank you. Okay. Any other questions on the TAN? And this TAN will be for up to $120 million. But keep in mind that we historically, have not taken up to the maximum amount. We will try, the administration will try to keep that as low as possible. Hopefully won't need it if we get it out in time. It will probably need something. Okay. So hopefully we'll need minimal dollars, assuming tax bills go out sometime in the next couple weeks. So, any other questions, comments? All right. Let's open the vote. Thank you. There is no report out from executive session. The board will retreat back into executive session after this legislative meeting. And at this time, I'd like to invite Vice Chair Ishay Collins to report out from the community meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tonight we heard from 10 speakers, starting with the support for the Excellent Schools framework and the sense of urgency on a timeline as we embark on our strategic plan process. There was advocacy for charter schools and the emphasis of the 17-year relationship with Atlanta Public Schools and the recognition that charter schools are in fact public schools. We also heard from community members on the need to address the homeless population as we do embark on a strategic plan and better ways to serve our community and our students. There was discussion about the strategic plan and the need for simplicity to get more community feedback and support in the process. Again, we heard more support for the need for great schools and a strong participation from the community and parents in the strategic planning process. We heard from the Atlanta Thrive parents that knocked on doors over the summer to communicate with other parents and to advocate for parental involvement. Community members expressed the needs that the needs assessment should have been completed by now and start a strategic planning process, and that encouraged us to stay on the timeline as presented in today's work session. And we heard from Daniel 7 Resource Center that shared the RESPECT project and its support for Thomasville Heights by asking the community to all donate $1 to purchase technology for the children. And that, Mr. Chair, is tonight's community meeting.
Okay. Report out from board committees. There is no report from the budget. Is there one from policy?
No, except that we will have a meeting on August the 15th at 8:30 in the morning.
Okay. Audit?
No report out. Our meeting will be August the 15th at 2 p.m.
And accountability. We plan on having a meeting on August 15th, 10:30, although we may have to change that time to 11, but plan on having a meeting on August 15th. Report out from board conferences.
So I had the pleasure of going to the Georgia School Board Association this summer in June, representing the board there, and I had Pierre join me, and he went down to get trained as in the office staffing that they offered training for there, and he realizes what a unique setup we do have here in Atlanta and how privileged we are to have a board office with supports directly for our board members. As a delegate, I supported all of the various initiatives that the Georgia School Board Association is interested in pursuing this coming year. It really does focus on rural schools and how to get more resources to them, and focuses on a very community-based approach in improving schools. And then we had the opportunity to meet with Nina Gupta and have a good conversation with her. We also met with various vendors that were there and had good conversations with them about different services that they could potentially offer the district.
Great.
Pierre, do you want to add anything?
No.
Okay.
Pierre, you should be reporting out too. Leslie?
Yep. I was able to attend mid-July in an extremely excruciatingly hot New York, the executive committee meeting of the Council of Great City Schools. It's made up of about 12 board members and 12 superintendents from the large urban districts around the nation. I was appointed to the membership committee and am happy to go into more detail with anybody who wants any more information on the council and their great works, but they are focused on a lot of policy issues, a lot of legislative lobbying, pulling together key performance indicators for different departments, hosting Java-like meetings nationwide for the member districts. And a couple of pieces I wanted to point out, if any, again, there's an annual report I'm happy to share with folks, as well as a specific report that was done just for APS on the benefits provided exclusively to Atlanta Public Schools by the council. I do believe they pointed out they saved us around $3.6 million in potential funding that could have damaged us from the federal Title I and II. But we've talked a bit about the census and the undercount that is quite possible, especially with the language that's been delivered by the folks at the White House and beyond. In terms of the importance of counting every single one of our students, this cannot be understated. And the council is going to come up with some recommendations in terms of how, some creative ways that perhaps through our schools and through our teachers, they can encourage students to take that message back home to their parents. Every household, every person should be, which again we know is difficult sometimes in the situations we have in our inner cities, but should be mailed a census form to fill out. If that form is mailed out to you and you fill it out and send it back by mail, nobody's going to come to your door. And so they want to make sure that people understand that, they're not going to be hunted down, for lack of a better term. And again, just how important that funding is that comes along with a proper count. If that count is not correct, we do not get the funding we need for the students here. It also affects our legislative, the people who represent us and the way that those district lines are drawn. So again, there's going to be some very good information, I think, from the mayor's office and everyone else involved around how we can get a better handle on that census count. And upcoming, there was also a report that was done about the ELL, the English language learners, and specific materials that the council was able to get developed that are really well-crafted curriculum for ELLs rather than just accepting what the publishing companies churn out. Those materials have been made available for purchase by procurement to any district, not just the council district. So we're hoping that information got communicated properly. Again, there's lots here to this. I am looking forward to the annual meeting in October, and I hope a couple of my colleagues will join me at that meeting. It's a great place to just to go and learn some best practices and meet some other folks from districts around the country. So appreciate the opportunity. Thank you, taxpayers.
Great. Thank you so much. With that, I will now entertain a motion to go back into executive session. And properly moved by Ishay Collins, seconded by Leslie Grant. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We will now retreat back into executive session. Hopefully won't be too much longer, but for the general public, there will be no action. There will be no report out. And we will adjourn after executive session. If y'all really want to stick around, we'll adjourn here. And yeah, thank you so much for coming. I hope you have a great night, and I hope you have a great day one.
Here.
Hey, Nancy.
You want to call me from the conference room?
Yeah, we'll call you from the conference room.
Okay, thank you.